At the age of 15, Li Chuyi finally awakened a system only for that system to attempt to flee in less than a day. Fortunately, before its departure, the system instructed Li Chuyi to acknowledge the Heavenly Dao of this world as his sworn father. From that moment on, Li Chuyi would become the godson of the Heavenly Dao, the favored child of heaven and earth, shrouded in boundless fortune. Honored Heavenly Dao above this human youth, Li Chuyi now beseeches the vault of heaven. You Lord of heaven, derive all things and nourish all living beings. Li Chuyi is deeply moved. You Lord of heaven have laid down the path of the Tao and granted all beings a chance at longevity. Li Chuyi is full of admiration. Yet as Lord Heavenly Dao gazes down upon the ages from on high, you are eternally alone, with not a single companion at your side. Chuyi cannot bear it, truly cannot bear such loneliness. Chuyi was born an orphan and has lived in desolation for 15 years. Today, I am willing to acknowledge Lord Heavenly Dao as my father, to remain by your side and never abandon you, accompanying you as we sit and watch the rise and fall of the mortal world. Atop a sheer peak 1,000 zhang high, the mountain winds howled bitterly. Li Chuyi sprawled on all fours, kowtowing again and again toward the offering table before him, where 3 enormous sticks of incense were placed. His expression was solemn and dignified, yet within his mind, he was conversing with the system. System, are you sure that if I do this, Lord Heavenly Dao won't blast me to death with a bolt of lightning? A certain system replied, stop being so mushy. Those 3 sticks of incense are this system's prized treasures. Before them, nothing you worship will go unanswered. System, if you're that formidable, why do you still want me to acknowledge the Heavenly Dao as my foster father? Isn't having you enough? Then I shall be frank. The myriad worlds systems assembly is about to be convened in the outer heavens beyond the primordial chaos. How would this system have time to babysit a silly brat like you? Wouldn't it be far more delightful to go court a few heroine systems? I'm finding you a backer first, that's me doing right by you. Hearing this explanation, Li Chuyi burst into tears in an instant. Who could possibly understand? Who could understand that he had died, inexplicably reincarnated into this world of immortals and demons with no father, no mother, and a home as bare as an empty hut? He had barely managed to survive until 15, finally awakening a system only for it to be preparing to run away in less than a day. What are you crying for? Keep kowtowing for this system. Do it with all your might. There's no justice in this world, Li Chuyi sobbed. At that very moment, the 3 sticks of incense on the offering table were burning away at a speed visible to the naked eye, rapidly turning to ash. This scene happened to be witnessed by Li Chuyi as he lifted his head. In an instant, purple clouds billowed across the sky, heavenly flowers rained down, and on that 1,000 zhang peak, golden lotuses sprang up everywhere from the earth. Strands of Tao laws began to manifest between heaven and earth. Carrying unfathomable mystery, they encircled Li Chuyi, as if rejoicing, as if leaping for joy. Suddenly, Li Chuyi seemed to feel an invisible hand. It stroked over the crown of his head, then lightly covered his eyes. The moment seemed both eternal and yet no more than an instant. When he opened his eyes again, all the visions had vanished without a trace. Boy, it's done. Your luck isn't bad. This world can already be considered a supreme world. The backer you've gained is as solid and unshakable as they come. Before I leave this system, we'll give you one more thing. It can help you survive a single life and death crisis. From here on out, everything depends on your own fortune. Li Chuyi looked at the golden leaf in his hand as its purpose and method of use automatically surfaced in his mind. System, are you leaving? I'm leaving. Kid, I won't waste time being sentimental with you. Don't miss me. The chaotic starry sky is boundless, and I wish to see it for myself. Mountains are high and rivers long. If fate allows, we shall meet again. System, are you still there? System. There was no response in his mind for a long time, and Li Chuyi understood. The system that had been with him was gone. He felt somewhat desolate, and a sense of loss lingered in his heart. Suddenly, high above the 9 heavens, a peal of thunder rang out of thin air. Li Chuyi snapped back to his senses at once. That's right, I have a foster father now, he exclaimed, his face lighting up with delight. He hurriedly dropped to his knees again and knocked his head 3 times toward the sky. When he rose, however, his brows furrowed slightly, as if some new thought had occurred to him. Ahem, foster father, could your child perhaps change the way he addresses you? I feel that calling you foster father isn't intimate enough nor particularly auspicious. Why don't I just call you dad instead? As soon as Li Chuyi's words fell, a 7-colored rainbow manifested out of thin air, spanning the horizon. Paired with the setting sun and the rising crescent moon, it seemed to form a peculiar smiling face across heaven and earth. Li Chuyi laughed as well, then shouted toward the sky, Dad, don't worry. From now on, I will definitely be a good son and honor you well. When he had climbed this 1,000 zhang peak, he had hacked his way through thorns and brambles. Now, as he descended, rosy clouds filled the sky, and all things seemed to welcome and send him off. Walking along the rugged mountain trail, Li Chuyi was surrounded by birds and accompanied by ferocious beasts. Not only that they brought him all kinds of fresh wild fruits along the way, while tigers and spotted leopards hunted mountain chickens and game for him. Li Chuyi grinned, so widely his mouth could barely close, repeatedly declaring that recognizing this father had truly been worth it. The small village where he lived lay just over 10 li from the mountain peak. After a swift run, he finally rushed back to the village before the moon reached the middle of the sky. The village held only a dozen or so households, dwellings scattered sparsely with faint lights glowing here and there. I'm back. As soon as Li Chuyi stepped over the wooden fence at the village entrance, he shouted at the top of his lungs. With several barks from dogs, figures began to emerge from their houses one by one. Chuyi, where did you run off to today? It's already so late, and you still weren't back. None of us could sleep. We were just about to gather people to go search for you. Looking at the worried eyes of the old village chief and the people around him, Li Chuyi felt deeply guilty. His mother had fled to this place while pregnant with him and had been rescued by the villagers. Later, with the help of the village aunties, she gave birth to him here, but not long after she passed away, leaving behind an infant in need of milk. Thus, Li Chuyi had been raised by the whole village since childhood and was deeply attached to every person there. Aunties and uncles, I have great news today. I'll tell you all in a moment. Oh, and please divide these pieces of game among yourselves, aunties. I hunted quite a lot. In the moonlight, the old village chief's eyes were cloudy, yet as he gazed at Li Chuyi, he kept feeling that something about the boy had changed. In the end, he slowly said, it's still early. Why doesn't everyone stay up a while longer? Since Chuyi brought back so much game, let's just light a fire and sit together for a chat. Before long, a bonfire was blazing on the open ground. Mountain chickens and wild rabbits, skinned and cleaned, were skewered and roasting over the flames, fat sizzling and dripping into the fire. A few little brats stared fixedly, knowing that looking away even for a moment would be a great loss when it came time to eat. By the fire, Li Chuyi, brimming with energy, said, village chief, aunties, and uncles, let me share some good news with everyone. Today, I acknowledged a godfather. What? Chuyi, you acknowledged a godfather? Then why didn't you bring him back to the village so we could give him a proper welcome? Hearing that Li Chuyi had taken a godfather, the villagers grew lively, at once chattering and gossiping. One of the aunties said, Chuyi, what does your godfather do? If he has no ability, he's not worthy to have our Chuyi as a son. You're so capable and sensible after all. Asked what his godfather did, Li Chuyi lowered his head and thought for a moment, then made up his mind. Auntie, my godfather should count as an official, right? Yes, he's an official. Upon hearing that he was an official, the villagers began discussing even more enthusiastically. An official? That's impressive. If our Chuyi follows him, he might land himself a post someday. By the way, Chuyi, is your godfather a high-ranking official? How many people can he command? Aunties and uncles, rest assured. My godfather's position is incomparably exalted. The number of people he governs is so great, they simply cannot be counted. At once, the sound of people drawing in sharp breaths hissed around the bonfire. Uncles and aunties, let's not discuss this anymore. The meat is done, and these little rascals are already drooling with hunger. While Li Chuyi and the others reveled in laughter, 30 li away from the village, 19 riders with steel sabers strapped to their backs, eyes twisted with ferocious bloodlust, were urging their horses at full gallop toward the small settlement under the moonlight. Chuyi, what are you doing lining the meat up so neatly over there and not eating it? Li Chuyi flushed slightly and said, Auntie, I just acknowledged a foster father today. Even though he isn't here, I'm setting aside a portion for him. It counts as fulfilling a bit of filial duty. Ha ha ha, I knew Chuyi has been sensible since he was little. Look how filial he is. That foster father of yours is truly blessed. Uncles and aunties, Chuyi will be filial to you all as well. Just then a violent neigh shattered the village's tranquil atmosphere. The next instant, the wooden fence at the village entrance exploded into fragments under pounding hooves as 19 dark riders burst in. The cold blades in their hands were crusted with dried blood, exuding a murderous chill beneath the moonlight. The 19 Earth Fiend riders of Taoyao Kingdom are here. All of you crawl out for me. The 19 riders spread out in a line, illuminated by the bonfire. Their faces appeared twisted and hideous. Boss, the brothers have scouted it clearly. This village has only a dozen or so households, fewer than 50 people in all, and it's the only village within 100 li. The man at the head held a pitch-black saber with a great bow hanging from his saddle. Unlike the vicious visages behind him, his features carried an unexpected hint of refinement. Only his eyes were vicious and gloomy as they swept over Li Chuyi and the others. I'll count to 3. Someone steps out and answers me, or else. 1, 2. Honorable heroes, may I ask what brings you to our wild little village in the dead of night? We have cooked meat and homebrewed rice wine here. Perhaps. The old village chief had stepped forward, but before he could finish, raucous laughter from the riders cut him off. Boss, this old man called us heroes. I'm dying of laughter. Tisk tsk. You decrepit old fool, do you have any idea how many villages we've slaughtered along the way, how many towers of human heads we've built, and you call us heroes? At those words, every heart present sank to the bottom. The old village chief staggered, seeming like a dying candle in the wind. Mustering himself upright, he said in a deep voice, Then let us speak plainly with the window open to the light. Why have you come, and what must be done for you to spare the elderly and young of our village? At that moment, the refined-looking bandit chief took the bow from his back, knocked an arrow and drew, but did not loose. Instead, he slowly swept the aimed arrow over the gathered villagers. Like a cat playing with mice. He gave a cold laugh. Old man, listen well. My name is Chu Feng, leader of these 19 riders. I will ask and you will answer. If your answers please me, granting you all intact corpses might not be impossible. At dusk today, from 100 li away, we 19 riders saw this stretch of heaven and earth awash in purple radiance, with blossoms cascading from the sky. Yet all along the way we found nothing. Old man, did some extraordinary treasure emerge, and you lot hid it away? No hurry. Think carefully before you answer. When Chu Feng finished, his eagle-like eyes scrutinized the crowd as though selecting whom to devour. Leader, we are but rustic villagers. Even if a treasure lay before our eyes, we would not recognize it. Moreover, not a soul in the village has gone out today. Where would we seek such a thing? Old man, you dare lie. Chu Feng roared. The bowstring in his hands creaked taut as though the arrow would fly the very next heartbeat. Those hearts and lungs at the village entrance are still fresh. Don't tell me you pin up your prey alive after the hunt. Seeing that the man might kill in the next instant, Li Chuyi drew a deep breath and was about to step forward, but the old village chief quietly pressed a firm hand on his back to hold him still. The old man's grip was strong, yet Li Chuyi still broke free. He knew these bandits would never let them go no matter what. Since he had provoked this calamity, he could not hide behind others. Leader Chu, that game at the village entrance was hunted by me today, and I also acknowledged a foster father today. Li Chuyi stepped forward, meeting the bandit chief's vulture-cold gaze word by word. For a moment, silence fell over the scene. Then the bandits erupted into roaring laughter. A foster father? This brat's got something wrong in his head. I'll hack it off later and take a look. Even the villagers were baffled. These men were desperados. Even the emperor's name would be useless before them. Badmin, Brother Chuyi's foster father, is a high official. He'll definitely catch you all and throw you in jail. At this moment, a 3-year-old girl among the villagers cried out at the bandits in a milky, childish voice. Guinea, don't talk nonsense. A stout aunt hastily pulled the girl into her arms. A high official. Ha! The bandits on horseback laughed even more wantonly. Chu Feng, however, seemed intrigued. He urged his horse forward and pressed his drawn bow to Li Chuyi's head. Chuyi. Seeing this, the villagers all cried out in shock, their eyes filled with frantic anxiety. Boy, you went out hunting today, and your foster father is a high official. Then do you know the people I hate most in this life are those officials? I kill everyone I see. A note of mockery flashed in Chu Feng's eyes. Brat, tell me then, who is this foster father of yours? Perhaps someday I'll have the chance to send him down to reunite with you. Staring at the arrow pressed to his forehead, Li Chuyi's eyelid twitched, but his expression did not change. Leader Chu, was it? As for who my foster father is, I fear you are not qualified to know. Brat, you're courting death. Chu Feng laughed in fury, loosening the tension on his bow as he snarled. You say I'm not worthy. Very well, very well. I won't ask who your foster father is. Right now you kneel on the ground and call me Grandpa 10 times, and perhaps I'll consider sparing your life. At those words, Li Chuyi's gaze instantly turned strange. Leader Chu, you're sure you want to be my grandpa? If I call you Grandpa once, do you dare answer? Why wouldn't I dare? Grandpa. Good grandson Grandpa is. Before Chu Feng could finish his sentence, heaven and earth abruptly changed color, bolts of lightning serpents flashing across the sky. A divine thunderbolt fell from the 9th heaven, crashing straight down upon Chu Feng's head. With a deafening boom, the once overbearing fiend was reduced to a headless corpse that tumbled from his horse. The myriad lightning serpents came as swiftly as they went, vanishing without a trace in the blink of an eye. The sight left everyone dumbfounded. Only after a long moment did they regain their senses. Boss is gone. Brothers, this village is cursed. Slaughter them all and avenge the boss. Kill. At the brink of disaster, Li Chuyi's expression hardened. He drew out that golden leaf and slashed it fiercely across his palm. Once it had drunk its fill of his blood, the golden leaf transformed into a streak of light that enveloped the entire village. Within the golden radiance, everything except Li Chuyi felt utterly still, as though frozen in place. He saw the aunties clutching children, faces etched with despair. He saw the uncles gripping hoes and sickles, their expressions resolute as they prepared to perish together with the marauders. He also saw those bandits with steel blades raised, fangs bared, and eyes crazed with bloodlust. In that moment, Li Chuyi did not hesitate in the slightest. He snatched up Chu Feng's fallen bow, knocked arrow after arrow, and drew the string. Each sharp shaft flew, and with each flight a spray of blood blossomed. By the time the villagers came back to themselves, the savage marauders of a moment ago had become nothing but corpses strewn across the ground. Li Chuyi, drained of blood, collapsed into unconsciousness. That night the youth drew his bow till it was full, his veins burning with hot blood and the keen edge of resolve. The next day the sun was already high in the sky. Li Chuyi abruptly woke up, realizing he was lying on his small wooden bed. Suddenly, he seemed to remember something, his expression turning anxious as he shouted into the air. Father, forgive me. I know it's disrespectful to call others father without reason. I just wanted to try it last night. I swear I won't use this trick again unless absolutely necessary. Please rest assured. Li Chuyi felt uneasy in his heart. After all, he was now considered the son of the Dao. Wasn't calling others father akin to slapping his own Dao father's face. At that moment, with a creak, the wooden door was pushed open and the old village chief walked in. Chuyi, are you feeling better? Who were you talking to just now? Oh, I'm fine now. I feel great. Oh, I was just talking nonsense while still half asleep. The old village chief slowly sat down beside the bed, looking at Li Chuyi with a kind expression. Chuyi, I want to ask about last night, but you're a fortunate child. This village is too small for you. You should go out and see the world. Village chief. Li Chuyi looked a bit confused. Child, here, take this. I found it from that leader last night. It should be useful to you. The old man said as he pulled out a thin booklet and a map from his pocket. Once you've made your decision, just say goodbye to the villagers before you leave. Watching the old man's frail figure, Li Chuyi fell into contemplation. In fact, he had been pondering where to go from here ever since he returned yesterday. Suddenly, he thought of that fleeing system. If a system wanted to explore the world, how could a 15-year-old boy not? At that moment, his eyes sparkled like stars. It was time to venture out. Surely along the road ahead there would be mountains, waters, and sceneries worth braving the heights and dangers to behold. At the village gate, the old village chief earnestly advised Li Chuyi. Chuyi, the world outside is full of treachery. You must be cautious. Understood, village chief. Li Chuyi carried a large bundle on his back. Inside were the cured meat buns made by his aunt's cornbread and a dagger made from a chopping knife given to him by his uncle. Several children even gifted him their favorite hair ties and slingshots. However, when the old man saw the donkey Li Chuyi was holding, his expression became somewhat strange. Chuyi, why not exchange it for a horse? That group left so many good horses, and the village can't use them all. Plus, this little donkey isn't strong enough. Hee-haw. The donkey seemed to understand the old man's words, protesting loudly while burying its head into Li Chuyi's embrace. No need. Let those horses stay in the village as pack animals. Otherwise, every time our villagers go to town to sell some mountain goods and buy salt, it would take 2 or 3 days for a round trip. Besides, I've raised this ugly donkey for a few years. It would be a pity to lose it. Li Chuyi patted the donkey's head with a smile. Seeing this, the old man said no more. Behind the old man stood all the villagers, who looked at Li Chuyi with reluctant expressions. Li Chuyi looked back at them. Several aunts had fed him when he was a baby. As he grew older, those uncles enjoyed poking him with their beards and carrying him on their shoulders, while little ones like Hunyu had grown up alongside him. In that moment, the boy felt sorrow for the first time. Little Chuyi, stay safe. If the food outside isn't good, come back to the village. The ants will make you meat buns. Chuyi, may you have smooth sailing. Brother Chuyi, come back early. At this, he could no longer hold back, and tears streamed down his face. Amidst the green hills and clear waters with peach blossoms in full bloom, Li Chuyi had unknowingly traveled 20 miles away from the village. The boy's sadness was somewhat alleviated by the beautiful scenery along the way. It was only at this moment that Li Chuyi understood why the country he lived in was called Piqiao. He had thought it was merely a poetic name, but it turned out to be a reality. Along this short 20-mile journey, peach blossoms bloomed everywhere. At that moment, he sat on the little donkey, carefully studying the booklet and map given to him by the village chief. I didn't expect Chu Feng had such a past. Li Chuyi couldn't help but furrow his brow. This booklet was actually a diary containing the owner's past. Chu Feng too was born into a scholarly family and fortuitously obtained a qualification from some sect to skip the assessment commonly referred to as a chance for immortality. Fortunately, he possessed a spiritual root, albeit a mixed one with 4 elements. However, this qualification undoubtedly opened a new door for him. But the outcome was that his family was destroyed, the qualification was taken, and he became a bandit out of deep-seated hatred. Why do tragic people always like to replay their own tragedies on unrelated individuals? Li Chuyi murmured to himself. Although Chu Feng's first half of life was indeed lamentable, what did he do afterward? He slaughtered entire villages and built a monument of heads. Perhaps it was because his enemy entered a sect, and knowing revenge was hopeless, he fell into madness. He opened the map again, noticing that the Piqiao kingdom only occupied a small corner. The eastern border of the Piqiao kingdom was a wide river spanning 1,000 miles named Tongtian. On the other side of the river lay an entire continent with locations of various sects marked prominently. 1,000 miles wide is still called a river. Truly, this is a world of immortals and demons. Li Chuyi couldn't help but exclaim. Then he thought about why that gang of earth fiends had barged into the village overnight. They probably thought there was some treasure to be had, a stepping stone for joining a sect. A sect, eh? Li Chuyi's face lit up with a smile as he patted the donkey beneath him. Ugly donkey, let's head east. Hee-haw. The journey to Tongtian River is approximately 10,000 miles. With a person and a donkey's pace, it would take several months. At this moment, Li Chuyi, riding his little donkey, had already reached the main road, where the number of travelers had noticeably increased. However, a light rain began to fall from the sky, enveloping the entire world in a thin mist. Travelers donned raincoats and held paper umbrellas hurrying along. Yet no one noticed that the person and donkey on the road were not using an umbrella and remained completely dry. "Father, I want to feel the rain." Li Chuyi looked at the drizzle falling in front of him, while he himself was not a drop wet, so he helplessly spoke to the sky. This remark was heard by two men nearby who looked at him with strange expressions. "Is this kid sick? Calling a donkey father? Right? He looks handsome, but unfortunately has a mental illness." The two continued to talk, but suddenly tripped over something, falling headlong into a mud pit in front of them. After struggling to get up, a cart passed by, splattering mud all over their faces. "What the hell you driving?" Before they could finish cursing, they slipped again, falling back into the mud pit. This happened several times. However, Li Chuyi did not witness this scene, for he had already ridden his donkey far away. Ultimately, he and the donkey arrived at the first stop of their journey before nightfall. Qinghe County City. After entering the city, the rain stopped and the sky had completely darkened. Yet the city was bustling with activity, its lights twinkling like countless stars. Li Chuyi leisurely strolled along the bluestone pavement, observing the fluttering banners of various merchants between the green-tiled roofs and blue walls. "Ugly donkey, we're hungry, let's go eat. Don't worry, I'll cut grass for you in the village, and here I'll find you a big inn with the best fodder." Li Chuyi patted his chest, whispering to the donkey's ear, "Huier, Huier." Although he said so after comparing many places, Li Chuyi still had his reservations. In the end, he found a relatively secluded inn with an ordinary environment but cheap prices. "Ugly donkey, don't worry this time, I didn't bring much silver from the village. Next time, it'll definitely take you to see more." Li Chuyi patted his chest again. "Huier, Huier." The innkeeper was a woman in her 40s, still possessing a certain charm. "Innkeeper, do you have any better fodder? I can pay a little more silver." "Fodder costs 10 1. If you want better fodder, you need to add 5 1." The innkeeper replied casually while yawning. "Just give me the better kind, and also a bowl of rice with a couple of... By the way, could you please provide an extra set of chopsticks?" "Thank you, innkeeper." Li Chuyi cupped his hands in thanks, smiling innocently. "Do you have someone with you?" the innkeeper asked casually. "No, just me. The other set of chopsticks is for my father." Upon hearing this, the innkeeper's gaze towards Li Chuyi instantly changed, filled with a mix of pity and sympathy. When the dishes were served, seeing the table full of chicken, duck, fish, and meat, Li Chuyi became completely flustered and hurriedly looked at the innkeeper. "Innkeeper, I only need 2 side dishes. I can't afford all this food." "It's okay, I won't charge you extra. Consider the extra dishes my treat. At your age, you should be eating more. 2 dishes won't be enough." The innkeeper gently patted Li Chuyi's shoulder, her eyes filled with a smile and appreciation, then called over a waiter to give instructions. "Change that donkey's fodder to fresh stuff, add some fine bran." Seeing this, Li Chuyi could only repeatedly express his gratitude, feeling he had encountered a kind-hearted person. Looking at the abundant spread on the table, he first set up a pair of chopsticks, then took a little from each dish and placed it in his bowl. Respectfully, he said, "Father, please go ahead." Then Li Chuyi began to feast heartily. The innkeeper at the counter watched this scene and couldn't help but sigh. What a filial child. Meanwhile, the donkey in the stable was chewing on the fine bran and fresh grass, grinning from ear to ear. The innkeeper likely didn't expect that her actions tonight would lead to the inn thriving in the future, and as a widow, she would find a loving husband, eventually giving birth to a plump son. It became a tale of good fortune in this small town. After finishing his meal, Li Chuyi helped the waiter clear the table before returning to his room to drop off his bundle. He opened the window, and the lively noise of the street greeted him. Li Chuyi decided to go for a walk to digest his food. Qinghe County was neither too big nor too small, just like the townspeople's expectations of happiness, neither too much nor too little. Everyone here wore smiles, whether they were nobles or common folk. Each person had their own happiness just right, not too much or too little. Li Chuyi strolled slowly, observing. From time to time, he would stop to chat with pedestrians, listening to them share their... He responded with expressions of surprise, sympathy, and admiration, seemingly completely immersed in their tales. Suddenly, the sound of drums and gongs came from ahead, attracting many passers-by to rush over. "The theater is performing an outdoor show today, free of charge. Hurry, everyone, or there won't be any seats left." Li Chuyi heard this and thought it was quite fortunate, so he hurriedly followed the crowd forward. When he arrived, the area around the stage was already packed, and the performers had begun to sing. He stood at the periphery, listening and cheering loudly, taking on the role of an enthusiastic audience member. On stage, there were 2 performers, one dressed as a general and the other as a prince. Their singing was melodious, and their movements were smooth and well-timed. After listening for a while, he understood the story of the play. It was about an emperor who was about to pass away, yet he did not intend to pass the throne to the crown prince, but rather wished to appoint someone else. This general not only commanded numerous troops, but was also exceptionally brave and skilled in battle. Thus, the crown prince prepared to persuade and win over this general to rebel alongside him. Li Chuyi was captivated and eager to see how the general would decide. At this moment, he did not notice the group of people slowly approaching from behind. All of these people were dressed in fine clothing, and at the forefront were a man and a woman dressed like nobles. Young friend, do you find this play interesting? Li Chuyi did not look back thinking someone was just asking casually, so he hurriedly replied, it's interesting, very interesting. Then if you were to replace that general, what would your choice be? Me. Only then did he subconsciously turn around. He saw a man wearing dark cloud-patterned brocade robes with a mink cloak draped over it appearing imposing with his sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. The woman beside him was equally stunning in both appearance and demeanor. Young brother, I would like to ask, if you were in the general's position, what choice would you make? The man repeated the question, looking at Li Chuyi with eager anticipation in his eyes. Husband, why are you asking this child? How much wisdom can he have at such a young age? A hint of impatience flashed in the woman's eyes. Madam, you must not be unreasonable. You know I possess some insight into human nature, and this young friend has boundless potential. Understood, husband. The man first reprimanded his wife, then bowed to Li Chuyi. I apologize, young friend, but this answer is very important to me. At this moment, the play on stage had reached its conclusion. The general did not agree to the crown prince's request, but instead chose loyalty to the emperor, though the crown prince had rebelled on his own. As for the outcome, it remained unknown. Li Chuyi looked at the distinguished couple before him and thought to himself, could it be that this big brother is too engrossed in the play? However, after a brief contemplation, he replied, it's simple. How is it simple? If I commanded 100,000 troops, I would consider loyalty to the emperor and saving the throne, but if I commanded 1,000,000 troops, then it would be heaven's mandate, and I would rule forever. Heaven's mandate, ruling forever. Upon hearing this answer, the man fell into deep thought. By the time he came back to his senses, Li Chuyi had already walked away, disappearing amidst the bright lights. Husband, this child speaks the truth. The current court is decaying, only knowing internal strife and indulging in pleasure. If we weren't guarding the borders, the Peach Blossom Kingdom would have already fallen. What loyalty to the emperor and love for the country. It would be better to rebel. The woman spoke with a spirited demeanor, her voice resonant and powerful. Madam. The man looked at his wife, then turned back to glance at the brothers he fought alongside. In that moment, something in his eyes seemed to shift. Meanwhile, the instigator Li Chuyi had returned to the inn, embracing the donkey's head in the stable. Ugly donkey, tonight is our first time sleeping outside after so many years. You must stay alert and not be afraid. Huier. On the morning of the next day, Li Chuyi slowly left Qinghe County after thanking the innkeeper multiple times while leading the donkey. Facing the morning breeze, Li Chuyi traversed through the blooming peach blossom forest heading east. Father, why do people constantly fight among themselves? What is it for? In the end, don't they just turn into a handful of yellow earth? Along the way, he encountered many soldiers, all fully equipped and prepared. Huier. I'm talking to my father, what are you ugly donkey chiming in for? At that moment, a bolt of lightning struck down from the sky, landing directly on the donkey's head. Haha, you ugly donkey, dare to take advantage of me. Seeing the donkey's fur bristling and emitting black smoke, Li Chuyi burst into laughter. The lightning, although fierce in appearance, was merely a lesson for the donkey. However, after this incident, the donkey learned its lesson and would not dare to respond whenever Li Chuyi called it father again. The man and donkey continued eastward and did not reach a village until 3/4 past noon. Peach Blossom Village. Li Chuyi pouted, feeling that the name was too ordinary. In the Peach Blossom Kingdom, there were at least 80 places with such a name. As he entered the village, a strong aroma of wine greeted him, followed by a crowd welcoming him. Young guest, would you like to eat or stay at the inn? Young guest, come to my home, you can eat for free, all meals and drinks are on me. I was the first to invite this young guest, you all can go away. In an instant, Li Chuyi's long-sealed memories stirred, making him think he had arrived at some tourist attraction. Brother, come to my home, my father brews the best wine. He looked down to see a little girl about 2 or 3 years old, delicately beautiful, and not even reaching his knee, tugging at his pant leg. How could he refuse such a cute creature? She was undeniably a true little innkeeper. Everyone, I'm going to eat at this girl's house, so I won't trouble you further. The previously enthusiastic aunts and uncles instantly dispersed, leaving only murmurs behind. We should band together from now on to deal with old Zhang's family. Absolutely, he's simply lacking in martial ethics, sending out such a little girl to attract guests. Who could compete with her? Exactly, we must firmly resist. Tonight, I will drag my wife to give birth. Li Chuyi. Brother, this way. Following the little girl, Li Chuyi passed through a cluster of houses and arrived at an inconspicuous tavern. Oh, young guest, please come in. The shopkeeper was a middle-aged man looking quite worn who was currently holding the little girl and praising her endlessly. Young guest, are you just passing through or staying at the inn? I'd like to have something to eat. By the way, uncle, why are there so many inns in this village? Li Chuyi remembered the scene at the village entrance and had noticed many taverns and inns along the way. Oh, it's like this. 3,000 miles west of here, there is no human settlement until 3,000 miles away where the cities begin. To avoid dangers in the wilderness, people travel in groups, or choose to go with merchant caravans. When there are many people rest, and supplies become necessary, so most of the business in our village revolves around this. Li Chuyi suddenly understood. Uncle, is it okay if I tie the donkey to the tree at the entrance? No problem. Just as Li Chuyi was tying the rope, a group of people passed by him accompanied by a dozen children. What surprised him was that all these children had wide-set eyes, drooping eyelids, low ears, flat noses, and looked foolish. They closely resembled the symptoms of Down syndrome from his memory. Li Chuyi frowned and returned to the inn. Uncle, what are those people doing, and where did those children come from? The innkeeper was boiling water, and upon hearing Li Chuyi's inquiry, he paused his work with a sigh. Sigh, those children are pitiful. They were born with congenital defects and have been mistreated and despised. Now they have managed to escape their suffering. Oh, uncle, what do you mean by that? Li Chuyi was somewhat confused. I've heard that there is a great philanthropist in a city 3,000 miles away who has built a charitable hall to adopt these children with congenital defects from all over the country. So going there is also a good destination for them. It sounded good, but Li Chuyi always felt that things were not that. Young guest, today we have freshly made braised meat. I'll slice you a plate and stir-fry 2 fresh dishes along with a bottle of my homemade peach blossom wine. How does that sound? Then I'll trouble you, uncle. The dishes were served quickly. As per his usual routine, Li Chuyi first offered the meal to his heavenly father before starting to eat. The peach blossom wine was not very strong, but it was sweet and refreshing, making his appetite grow. He exclaimed that this was what wine should be, what use was high alcohol content. A few people enjoyed the scene. Just as he was lost in reverie, the shopkeeper's little girl brought in another guest. The newcomer was carrying a long sword. Li Chuyi glanced at her and immediately recognized that the swordsman was a girl disguised as a boy. However, he did not mind. It was normal in the rivers and lakes. After a hearty meal, he paid the silver and bid farewell to the innkeeper. Young guest, since you're alone, why not wait for the caravan to leave with them? It truly is a 3,000-mile journey, and it will take 1 or 2 months to travel through the wilderness. Going with a caravan is indeed safer. Li Chuyi was just tying the donkey's rope, while the big donkey kept nudging him in his embrace. Uncle, I'm quite bold, I don't have many concerns. All right then, remember, in the wild around here we have a saying, it's better to sleep on a grave than to stay overnight in a dilapidated temple. Thank you, Uncle. Chuyi will remember that. Not long after leaving Peach Blossom Village to the east, he entered the real 3,000-mile Big Mountains. Li Chuyi lay on the donkey's back, weaving through the deep mountains and old forests. Surrounded by hundreds of birds with ferocious tigers following behind him, the donkey was initially frightened, but upon seeing those fierce beasts looking at it with envy, because it could carry Li Chuyi, it began to shake again, occasionally lifting its hooves or baring its teeth in provocation. Li Chuyi paid no mind to it. One hand was munching on various nuts presented by the birds, while the other hand was immersed in studying an ancient book. The book was titled Prajna Knife Compendium. It was a supreme martial art for mortals. According to the book, on the day the knife is completed, one would be invincible among mortals, able to fight even against those who have just entered the immortal gates. This book was what he had found when he first entered the mountains, and beside it was a black long knife similar to the Tang knife from his memory, though it appeared somewhat rusty. Continuing onward, he was unaware that the sky had turned dark. At this moment, Li Chuyi had a blank expression with various manuals piled high in his hands. There were titles like Tortoise Elephant Dragon Classic, Closing Moon Scripture Mystic Ice, True Chi, Primordial Vital Chi, and many more. Father, with so many manuals I can't practice them all. It's impossible. And what's this soul-snatching treasure book? What does it mean? Not only that, he had also picked up various weapons along the way, each with unique designs, but they all looked extraordinary. There was no choice. Li Chuyi could only have the group of fierce beasts carry them, as they were too heavy to carry all at once. There was no choice. This was true paternal love and filial piety. As night fell, Li Chuyi put down the book in his hand and found a sheltered spot to start a fire. The donkey and various wild beasts lay quietly by the fire surrounding him. I feel like having fish, Li Chuyi said, lying on the ground with a hint of laziness in his voice. A few black bears heard this and instantly sprang up, soon returning with several large plump fish. Not bad. Li Chuyi smiled broadly as he accepted the fish, even tugging on the tail of one of the bears, which was small and short. The donkey was displeased by this scene and brought its large rear end over, only to be kicked away. After quickly preparing the fish, Li Chuyi hugged various manuals and furrowed his brow in deep study. As he flipped through the books one by one, his eyes seemed to undergo a chaotic evolution with endless cycles of life and death. Various obscure manuals which were incomprehensible to ordinary people became clear and transparent in his hands, evolving towards deeper layers. This was the pinnacle of comprehension. At this moment, Li Chuyi was reading a book titled The 4 Symbols of Heaven's Destruction. After just a few glances, however, a wicked book, simply wicked. What has heaven done to you? Always talking about destroying heaven. He wore an angry expression, tossing the book beside the fire while cursing incessantly. But seconds later, he picked the book back up. It needs a new name. It must have a new name. He took a piece of charcoal from beside the fire and scratched out the original title. Then he wrote cultivation with the power of the four symbols, I am invincible. Only then did he begin to read again. This book was not a cultivation technique nor a martial arts manual, it was a secret art. It mainly discussed how to refine the essence and blood of living beings' temper, one's own body, and ultimately cultivate into the four symbols avatar. Upon reaching this point, stars seemed to twinkle in his eyes, feeling that this method held great potential. The first chapter of the four symbols was the Azure Dragon chapter, but what to do without a dragon? Li Chuyi looked around, a smile curving at the corners of his mouth. Soon a line of long worms appeared beside the fire, waiting to have their blood drawn. A month passed in the blink of an eye. However, during this month, Li Chuyi lived an extraordinarily fulfilling life. He stumbled upon a 1,000-year-old ginseng and casually entered a cave that turned out to be the meditation abode of a cultivator. Although cultivators in the Tao Yao Kingdom were extremely rare, the accumulated number over countless years was still considerable. At least there were many traces of cultivators within these 3,000 miles of mountains. At this moment, Li Chuyi looked at his hands full of storage rings with a mocking expression. All these rings had been bound to him with his blood, allowing him to control them with his thoughts. Father, I can't wear them all, it's simply impossible. Additionally, after opening so many cultivator graves, he had a mountain of various cultivation techniques in his hands. This led him to deeply question himself. Did he really need to trek through mountains and rivers to seek immortality? However, in this month he had not cultivated any technique. Instead, he focused on practicing sword techniques, delving into various sword manuals. Now as he practiced, the sword's edge even faintly emitted a sword aura. Achieving such progress in a month could only be described as the child of destiny, terrifyingly so. Meanwhile, he was also refining his body daily with the blood of live snakes combined with various rare herbs, and the Azure Dragon secret technique had already begun to take shape. Of course, what he had cultivated was the serpent avatar, not the dragon avatar. This secret technique was incredibly miraculous. It could be activated by physical strength or by magical power. As Li Chuyi pondered the mysteries of various sword techniques, a long sword caught his attention in the grass by the roadside. He picked it up and examined it carefully. Is it hers? The owner of this sword was unmistakably the one who had disguised herself as a man in the tavern of Taoyuan village a month ago. No way she lost her sword, and there are no signs of blood or battle nearby. It doesn't seem like she encountered a ferocious beast. Li Chuyi frowned slightly, contemplating whether to go check it out. But if he encountered uncontrollable danger, what then? Suddenly a smile appeared in his eyes. I have a father who will suppress all enemies in the world. What is there to fear? Having made his decision, he placed the long sword near the noses of various small animals to sniff. Can you find the owner of this sword? As soon as he finished speaking, many animals with keen senses dashed off. Ugly donkey, let's follow them. Huier. This following continued from day until night. What appeared before him was a dilapidated temple, eerie and chilling. I would rather sleep on a grave than in a broken temple. Li Chuyi suddenly recalled the warning from the innkeeper uncle, but now that he had chased this far, how could he back down? How would his father look at him then? So he tied the donkey outside the temple, then took out the long black knife from his storage ring and stepped into the temple. It seems to be a city god temple, but I wonder how long it's been since it was built. Li carefully examined everything in the temple, finding nothing particularly special, and the inside was covered with cobwebs, indicating that no one had visited for a long time. Just as he was puzzled, a child's scream echoed through the air. He quickly followed the sound and discovered that the scream was coming from an ancient well inside the temple. Looking at the dark, seemingly bottomless well, Li Chuyi grasped his knife and pondered briefly before jumping straight down. The well was deep, but with his current martial arts prowess, it posed no threat. The screams continued, and Li Chuyi hid in the darkness, slowly making his way deeper along the well wall. The bottom of the well was dark and damp. The deeper he went, the more chilling the air became, accompanied by a strong smell of blood, causing him to frown. Suddenly, a glimmer of light appeared at the end of the tunnel, making him hold his breath, stepping lightly, not daring to make a sound. As he drew closer, the scene at the bottom of the well finally came into view. However, this sight caused his soul to tremble, shaking him to the core. He saw a gaunt creature resembling a malevolent ghost grinning as it held a child, ceaselessly grinding him on a blood-soaked millstone. The child's head had already been ground down by more than half. Blood bubbles erupted from his mouth, weakly calling out, clearly on the brink of death. Not only that, there were over a dozen other children on the ground, including the one who had disguised herself as a man, all shackled like dogs by iron chains. These children were unmistakably the Tang family children whom he had encountered before, who were said to have been rescued from suffering and adopted by a great benefactor. But what was this scene? Had they just escaped suffering only to fall into hell again? Stop it. He'll kill you. Li Chuyi roared as he drew his sword, killing intent coalescing into a solid form in his eyes. As he swung his sword down, a surge of sword aura shot towards the creature. Just as the sword aura was about to strike, a shield suddenly appeared, blocking all his attacks. At this moment, the creature slowly raised its head, its voice resembling a low, sinister whisper. Do you have a spiritual root? Do you have a spiritual root? The monster asked again. Under the light of the flames, its turbid eyes seemed to be in a daze. With the faint light, Li Chui finally saw its appearance clearly. It appeared to be a man. His face was covered in swollen flesh, and his body was covered with countless bright red flesh sprouts writhing continuously in the air. At this moment, he was gripping a child with one hand and incessantly grinding them on a millstone, while the other hand occasionally grabbed pieces of flesh and blood to shove into his mouth. Watching this hellish scene, Li Chui felt his eyes well up with rage. I have your mother's grave, go die, bastard. He swung his long knife, producing a sharp metallic sound, and suddenly exerted force with his legs, shooting towards the monster. With a single slash, the sound of the sonic boom was deafening, yet the long knife struck against a layer of blood-red membrane. Upon seeing this, Li Chui immediately withdrew his blade, turning in midair to create distance from the monster. Looking at the blood-red membrane on the monster's body, Li Chui's expression became serious. A cultivator. He had many books on cultivation in his possession and immediately recognized that the spiritual energy barrier surrounding the man was clearly indicative of a high-level qi refinement practitioner. At that moment, the woman lying unconscious on the ground slowly opened her eyes. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Li Chui holding a long knife confronting the monster. Run, you must run. He is a cultivator, and at a high level of qi refinement, a mortal cannot kill him, the woman shouted urgently at Li Chui. Meanwhile, the monster had stopped its actions, and its turbid eyes were slowly becoming clearer. Suddenly it began to laugh loudly, the sound sharp and piercing like a blade slicing through bone. Hee hee, and there are even those who come to deliver themselves. You over there, do you have a spiritual root? Li Chui ignored it, gripping his long knife, tightly contemplating from which angle he should strike to be faster and more ruthless. Kid, I advise you to behave, and perhaps I'll make your death a quick one. Do you have a spiritual root? Oh, what if I don't behave? Do you really think you can kill me? Li Chui stared into the monster's sinister and cold eyes, speaking each word deliberately. Ignorance breeds fearlessness. I see your aura is sharp, making you a top master among mortals, but I practice the Dao. Dao? You? What kind of Dao do you think you have? Just a maggot in a waste pit. Li Chui scoffed. Ha, you are right, I am just a maggot. But do you think I wanted to be this way? The monster began to grin wickedly, its flesh sprouts shaking incessantly. Do you know how despairing it is to have entered the Dao for 40 years and remain at the third level of qi refinement? The monster's voice suddenly rose several notches, sounding even more ferocious and jarring in the depths of the well. In the eyes of other cultivators, I am nothing but waste, not even worthy of a second glance. Do you know why this is? Let me tell you. It is because of the spiritual roots, because of the cultivation methods, because of the resources. Why is it that others have better qualifications while I have a mixed spiritual root? Why do others effortlessly obtain various spiritual herbs and cultivation methods, while I have to be a subordinate, humbling myself to plead with others? Why? Tell me, why is it? The monster shouted hysterically, as if going mad. Suddenly, it began to Fortunately, heaven does not completely cut off the path for people. I obtained a book called Spirit Ascension Method. This cultivation method is marvelous. With it, I can devour others' spiritual roots to enhance my own qualifications. So these children have spiritual roots, and they are your objects of devouring. Li Chui could hardly conceal his shock, for spiritual roots are hard to come by. Ha, that's right. Spiritual roots are 1 in 10,000 among ordinary people, but heaven opened my eyes and allowed me to discover a secret. The monster grinned wickedly, licking a mouthful of blood and flesh from the child's mangled head. Continuing, he said, spiritual roots are a gift from heaven, a source of blessings. But if one cannot bear such blessings, do you know what will happen? They will end up like these fools on the ground, incomplete from birth, living their lives in foolishness, suffering, humiliation, and torment. Anyway, their lives are filled with pain. Oh, why not let me devour them to aid my longevity? You say, is that not a good deed? Ha ha. Li Chui fell silent for a moment. He looked down at the children, whose faces were indeed pitiful and foolish, their movements awkward, even their speech incomplete. But who said that fools do not value their lives, or do not want to live? They were bowing repeatedly to the monster, the iron chains on their feet clanking loudly against the ground. They knocked their foreheads until blood flowed, yet they kept mumbling, don't eat me, don't eat me. At that moment, the murderous intent within Li Chui soared to the heavens. Just as he was about to swing his knife, the monster suddenly threw a crystal ball to him. Kid, behave. Place your hand on it, and let me see if you have a spiritual root, so I can give you a quick death later. Looking at the sphere, Li Chui smiled faintly. If you want to see my spiritual root, then I shall show you. Saying this, he placed his palm on the crystal ball, and in an instant a burst of colorful light erupted, illuminating the dark well like a realm of immortals. But in the blink of an eye, the crystal ball exploded with a loud bang, like fireworks bursting apart. You say you lack cultivation methods and spiritual herbs. Fine, I shall give you some. Li Chui flipped his palm lightly. Books of cultivation methods and spiritual herbs began to fall to the ground, piling up into small mountains. Upon witnessing this, not only was the woman stunned. The monster was utterly driven mad, the flesh sprouting on its body, growing wildly, writhing as it inserted itself into the remnants of the child's body, beginning to suck and chew. Mine, it's all mine. The spiritual herbs and cultivation methods are all mine. Kid, come here, let me eat you. Once I eat you, I will be able to enhance my spiritual root, truly establish my foundation, have enough lifespan to continue living and crush those who humiliated and mocked me underfoot. Ha, that's right. This path is indeed correct. The monster laughed maniacally, then transformed into a red light flashing behind Li Chuyi and blocking the only exit at the bottom of the well. Kid, you cannot escape. But before I eat you, I want to hear your thoughts as someone with such deep fortune. Tell me, have I done anything wrong? The monster said with a sinister tone, seemingly eager for Li Chuyi's answer. Meanwhile, Li Chuyi gazed at the children, who were still bowing repeatedly. His expression turned icy. You are not wrong, it's just that they also want to live. With that, his killing intent surged, dragging the long knife behind him, step by step approaching the monster, blocking the exit. The tip of the knife struck sparks on the ground. Meanwhile, his other hand quickly formed seals, casting a secret technique. 4 symbols, summon the spirit to take form, come forth python. In an instant, Li Chuyi's eyes turned vertical, shining like torches as a golden giant python's phantom coiled around him. At that moment, the countless bright red tendrils on the monster's body had already lunged towards him. Li Chuyi swung his knife. In that moment, he seemed to merge as one with the long knife in his hand. One slash shattered the shield. The spiritual energy barrier was as fragile as paper under the power of the 4 symbols. With the second slash, he cut through evil, the straight knife accompanied by its blade energy striking against the bright red tendrils, producing a sizzling sound like a candle melting upon encountering fire. With the third slash, he aimed for the monster's soul. The blade had already struck the monster's body. The sensation of tearing through flesh and skin made Li Chuyi even more frenzied. He aimed to cut this monster into a state of eternal damnation, unable to reincarnate. Uncertain of how many slashes he had made, the bottom of the well was already devoid of the monster's presence. Looking at the pile of mush on the ground, Li Chuyi spat. I cannot deny that you were wrong, but did you ever consider if others agreed to sacrifice their lives for your existence? In the vast mountains spanning 3,000 miles amidst a peach orchard, Li Chuyi stood before over 100 newly erected graves, which he had painstakingly set up himself. At this moment, he was holding a handful of peach blossoms, placing a bouquet on each grave. The sun was warm, yet the scene from the dry well in the ruined temple last night lingered vividly in his mind. After slaying that monster, he discovered over 100 child corpses at the bottom of the well. None of them were intact. They were all broken with clear bite marks visible on them. This made him wish he could drag that monster out of the underworld, kill it 1,000 times, and then have it trampled by a donkey. After arranging the peach blossoms, Li Chuyi meticulously checked each grave to ensure none were overlooked. Then he took out a crescent-shaped shovel and began to fix each mound of earth until they appeared as beautiful as he envisioned. He felt that those children had endured enough suffering in life and should not be wronged after death. Once he was done, he leaned against the donkey, a blade of grass in his mouth, closing his eyes, lost in thought. A gentle breeze swept by, causing peach blossoms to fall. Suddenly, Li Chuyi felt a coolness on his face. Is it raining on? What rain? Li Chuyi, get up and hang your clothes. They're all stained with blood. Do you have any idea how much effort it took me? Li Chuyi opened his eyes to find a girl sprinkling water on his face. Oh, so it's you, octopus brother, back again. Li Chuyi, let me clarify, my surname is you. My name is Yu Gana Zhang. The girl stood with her hands on her hips, her delicate brows nearly furrowed together. Seeing her appear upset made Li Chuyi slightly amused. Did you not say you were a master at the 4th level of Qi refinement? Can't you just use a spell to dry your clothes? Yugo pouted and huffed. The spiritual energy in the Peach Yao Kingdom is thin. I don't want to waste my Qi. So you're not from the Peach Yao Kingdom? What of it? I come from a country west of Peach Yao Kingdom. Let me tell you, my family is a lineage of cultivators. Impressive, the young lady from a cultivation family. Thank you for helping me wash my clothes. I volunteered after all, you saved me. I'm not someone who forgets favors. A chivalrous young lady, I admire you. On the peach tree, several articles of clothing fluttered in the wind, while under the tree Li Chuyi had made a fire and was grilling fish. The fish had just been delivered by a few gray bears, and seeing them bowing to Li Chuyi, Yugo looked quite confused. By the way, how long will those children sleep? On the other side of the fire, a dozen children lay on the ground, looking soundly asleep. They'll probably sleep until tomorrow morning. I cast the spring breeze spell on them. Spring breeze induces sleep. These children were already slow-witted and had been frightened. Oh, a bit more sleep would help them recover. Yugu unusually softened her tone. But moments later she pouted, looking at Li Chuyi with disdain. Li Chuyi, your robe is truly ugly. It has faded and looks ill-fitting. What's wrong with it being ill-fitting? This was worn by our village uncle when he ventured out young. Now that I am also going out, I wear it too. It's a form of inheritance, do you understand? As for it being ill-fitting, I'm only 15. In 2 more years it will fit just right. Li Chuyi said, while taking down the grilled fish, who, as per tradition, he offered the first skewer to his father and the second to Yugo. Yugo took the grilled fish and bit into it eagerly, not caring about the heat. While chewing, she mumbled, I merely suggested you pay a bit more attention to your appearance in front of girls, at least wear something presentable. Sorry, I won't accept your suggestion. Li Chuyi get lost. After finishing their meal, Li Chuyi picked up various texts to read. He examined talismans, formations, alchemy, and alchemical sand, not missing a single one. He thought that by learning about them now, when he entered the cultivation world later, he could at least engage in some conversations and have common topics. At this moment, Yugu approached again. Li Chuyi, what is your cultivation level really? Guess. Then where did you get all these cultivation techniques and so many spiritual herbs? Guess again. Yugu took a deep breath, suppressing her anger. What are your plans next? This time Li Chuyi did not brush her off, but looked up at the sky. Let's just see. In the days that followed, the two traveled together. Those children were helped along by Li Chuyi the donkey and some fierce beasts. This journey completely made Yugu doubt her life. Cultivation techniques were strewn everywhere and spiritual herbs were easily picked. Although the quality varied, the sheer quantity was more than enough. If she didn't know that this was the sparsely populated Xiao kingdom, she would have thought they were in some immortal's blessed land. In the blink of an eye, they were almost out of the 3,000 miles of mountains, as there were already many travelers on the road. However, to avoid the strange gazes of those travelers, Li Chuyi chose not to take the main road. At this moment, they were positioned where an endless plain lay ahead with the 3,000 miles of mountains behind them. Yugu was saying farewell to Li Chuyi. Li Chuyi, are you sure you don't want to join me in seeking entrance to the immortal sects? With your talent, well, those sects aren't worthy. Yugu appeared somewhat dejected. After spending some time together, she realized that this young man was no ordinary. I want to go too, but if I do, what will happen to them? Li Chuyi turned back to see a dozen children standing there dazed. The oldest among them was merely 10 years old. As for Yugu, Li Chuyi knew a bit about her situation. She hailed from the west, comprised of various cultivation families. She possessed the dual elemental roots of wind and fire along with a special root, yet at 16, she was only at the 4th level of chi refinement. This was due to her being bullied and ostracized by her cousin sister, who intended to use her as a marriage pawn. Therefore, she ran away from home, hoping to carve out a place for herself in a strange land. Looking at the girl before him, Li Chuyi actually admired her. At least she had the courage to break free from the cage and venture into the world. Yuga, let me give you something so our acquaintance isn't in vain. He flipped his palm, revealing a cultivation technique. It wasn't particularly powerful, just with a name that sounded impressive. The wind moves in all directions. Immortal Emperor and I are 50-50. Li Chuyi, what a ridiculous name for a technique. Seeing Yuge's disdainful expression, Li Chuyi's lips curved slightly. He wouldn't mention that the original name of this technique had offended both his father and himself, resulting in its forced renaming. Moreover, he couldn't use it himself, and there were just too many such techniques, which was quite annoying. Zhang Yuga, goodbye. I'm leaving Li Chuyi. After wandering in the mountains for a long time, Li Chuyi finally found a suitable place. This was a secluded valley with a stream in front and steep cliffs behind. Li Chuyi settled down there with the children. During the day, he either chopped wood to build wooden houses or cultivate. He even took the time to venture into the mountains to buy a lot of grain seeds from the nearest town. Thus the valley began. Once everything was arranged, Li Chuyi officially began his cultivation. The 5 elements spiritual roots were a disaster for other cultivators. However, Li Chuyi's 5 elements spiritual roots were different. They had already been completed by the Heavenly Dao, so for him, the 5 elements could give birth to all things. Meanwhile, he also guided a dozen children in their cultivation. These children, however, were innately incomplete. Although they had spiritual roots, they lacked understanding and needed his step-by-step guidance on how to cultivate qi. In the blink of an eye, spring turned to autumn, and 3 years passed. During these 3 years, Li Chuyi practiced 5 different 5 elements techniques, reaching the 9th layer of qi refinement despite the sparse spiritual energy in Taoyao country. Nevertheless, he continued to break through. One could only say that he, the son of heaven, was truly formidable. Besides that, he was particularly fond of sword techniques and various strange spells and secret arts, such as soul-calling, soul-searching, and transcending techniques, not to mention ordinary 5-element spells. The azure dragon form of the 4 symbols had already been modified into a python form by him. As he continuously integrated various snake types, even some blood of spirit snakes, the giant python phantom that formed behind him became increasingly ferocious. Instead, he felt quite pleased, thinking he looked quite impressive. The moonlight was hazy like water. At this moment, Li Chuyi stood at the door of the wooden house, looking at the children sleeping inside. Over these 3 years, under his repeated instructions, these children had all reached the 1st layer of qi refinement. The spiritual energy, indeed a vital force for all things, had allowed them to absorb it into their bodies. Although their appearances still seemed dull, their minds were much sharper than before. But that was enough. At least with Li Chuyi's tireless demonstrations, they had learned to farm, cook, preserve seeds, and raise livestock. Li Chuyi also taught them a few simple spells, such as the insect-repelling spell, water condensation spell, and small fireball spell, which were useful in daily life. Suddenly a smile appeared in Li Chuyi's eyes. "Ugly donkey, it's time to leave." Huier. A person and a donkey left the valley where they had stayed for 3 years and arrived at a small river. The river water was clear and calm like a mirror. With the starry sky above, the reflections of the person and the donkey were clearly visible. In the reflection, Li Chuyi had an indescribable charm that made one feel comfortable and tranquil. He was still wearing that faded long robe, but the loose robe from 3 years ago had now become fitted. "Ugly donkey, I want to return to the village. What about you?" The donkey tilted its head, its eyes wide open. Li Chuyi couldn't help but laugh. A witch seeker of the Dao was like him, leaving for 3 years without even finding where the immortal gates were. But what of it? He missed home. "These 3 years have been quite splendid. I have seen beautiful scenery, slain a great evil, and taught a group of unfortunate children to be self-reliant. I didn't bring shame to my father, haha." Wind ride. Li Chuyi gestured and a gust of wind blew, carrying the person and the donkey on their way home through the night. Qinghe County City. Li Chuyi returned to this place, which was the first stop of his journey over the past 3 years. The small town was much the same as 3 years ago, but it seemed a bit busier. He saw a brand new announcement posted on the city wall. "The new dynasty has been established, the new emperor has ascended the throne, and the people of Taoyao country have suffered under the tyrannical rule of the previous dynasty for too long. Today a general amnesty is declared, exempting the people from taxes for 3 years. This left Li Chuyi utterly astonished. How could there be a change of dynasty after just 3 years in the deep mountains? However, he didn't think too much about it. The purpose of his trip was to prepare a new set of clothing for himself. This was not for the sake of appearances. If he returned to the village looking shabby, the elders would think he had suffered hardships outside. After selling a few medicinal herbs that had aged enough, Li Chuyi took a bag of silver and started shopping. "I bought it. This one is good, I'll take it all." "Boss, what kind of shop are you running with this little stock?" Li Chuyi, with his nouveau riche demeanor, was naturally well received by the shopkeepers. After finishing his purchases, the person and the donkey walked down the street. At this moment, they passed by an inn. The donkey immediately brayed. It remembered that the fodder in this inn had a lot of fine bran, and it had been very happy that night. Li Chuyi also peeked inside and saw that the business was thriving. The middle-aged innkeeper in her 40s sat at the counter, holding a chubby child, looking quite content. "Ugly donkey, don't stare, or we should leave the city now." Not long after leaving the city, the person and the donkey passed through a peach blossom forest. There a young swordsman was drinking under a peach tree to drown his sorrows. Perhaps seeing Li Chuyi holding a black knife made him think they were both from the same world. The swordsman rolled and crawled to block his path, then began to weep bitterly. "Young master, as fellow wanderers, do you know how much I suffer?" "Li Chuyi." Then the swordsman began to talk to himself. Li Chuyi gradually pieced together the story. The tale was that the swordsman and his junior sister had been childhood sweethearts, and after growing up they ventured into the world together. However, childhood sweethearts could not withstand the thrill of new encounters, and daily companionship could not compete with love at first sight. The junior sister met a man, and from then on there was no longer any shadow of her senior brother in her eyes. What a cliché plot! Li Chuyi couldn't help but pout. However, looking at the swordsman who seemed to be on the verge of death, he couldn't help but ask, "Young hero, in such a vast world, must it be her and no one else?" "The world is indeed vast, but in my eyes she is the entire world," the swordsman shouted. "Foolish." Li Chuyi stood up ready to turn and leave, when suddenly he seemed to think of something and smiled mischievously. He took out a book, "I as a virgin will become a grand master," and stuffed it into the swordsman's arms. Of course, the original title was Pure Yang Burning Heaven Sacred Text, which stated that only those who are virgins may achieve great success. "Let's see if you want your junior sister or to become a grand master," he. After saying this, Li Chuyi took the donkey and left. It wasn't that he was malicious. Such a love triangle is most likely to end in tragedy, like the story of Liang Zhu. He was merely giving the male lead one more choice. After leaving the peach blossom forest and arriving at a deserted place, Li Chuyi performed a lightness technique for himself and the donkey. With mountains and rivers as companions, before he knew it, the village appeared before him. "I'm back." Li Chuyi looked at the rows of houses. His joy was beyond words. At this moment, several figures walked out from the houses. "Chuyi is back. Chuyi has grown up. Brother Chuyi, we missed you so much." Under the night sky, bonfires blazed in the village with everyone gathered around them. "Chuyi, you're already quite the handsome young man. Have you found any girls outside that you fancy?" "And there's no rush, oh, we're just getting started." Cold sweat broke out on Li Chuyi's forehead. "By the way, isn't your godfather an official? With the regime change, will it affect him?" "Rest assured, village chief, his position is as steady as a rock." Li Chuyi cheerfully answered each question from the crowd. For some questions he simply couldn't answer, he found a way to dodge the issue. Not only that, he began to recount some of his experiences from the past 3 years. For instance, he had learned a set of martial arts outside and fought a demon at the bottom of a well for 3 days and nights, finally emerging victorious by a stroke of luck. To lend credibility to his tale, he even demonstrated a set of sword techniques on the spot. The adults gasped in astonishment, while the little girl Hunyo looked at him with eyes full of admiration. Late at night, Li Qi lay on the small wooden bed he hadn't seen in 3 years. Suddenly, he leapt up like a fish. Damn, I can't sleep. Forget sleeping, it's time to practice my sword. With that, he grabbed his black sword and vanished into thin air. The sky was dim, stars twinkled, and a crescent moon hung askew in the night sky. Under the moonlight, Li Qi, clad in white robes with a black sword, had his long hair flowing in the wind. The sword in his hand was imbued with life. Each slash he made left a faint trace in the air. He practiced like this for the entire night. In the following days, Li Qi was quite busy. He intended to secretly use his spiritual energy to help each villager adjust their bodies. During this process, he discovered that no one in the village had a spiritual root, which saddened him greatly. That night, Li Qi quietly sneaked into the village chief's house. Village chief, these are talismans, and I have written the usage instructions on this piece of paper. These talismans were ones he had drawn from a blind box. He selected some that were relatively intact and could be used by mortals. Also, here are some martial arts manuals for the village children to practice with, so they will have some skills when they go out into the world later. These are spiritual herbs I found in the mountains. Though their quality is average, they are much better than ordinary medicinal materials and are meant to strengthen the foundation. You can use them as you see fit. Under the candlelight, the old village chief's eyes were cloudy, seemingly understanding everything. He let out a long sigh. Child, I understand, everyone understands. The village cannot hold you, go with peace of mind. Village chief. After leaving the village chief's home, Li Qi went to the horse pen, where the horses left by the bandits 3 years ago were kept along with a few young ones. At this moment, he fantasized about when Hunyo and the others grew up. They would practice those modified manuals and ride horses galloping through the rivers and lakes. What a sight that would be. The donkey was also there, lying comfortably among a few young female donkeys sound asleep. This time, Li Qi decided not to take it along. The donkey was over 10 years old, considered old, and he would let it enjoy its twilight years in the village. Arriving at the village entrance, Li Qi looked back once more. The entire village was quiet and peaceful under the night sky. 2 poles, 4 symbols, summon the spirit to take form, please Peng. In an instant, a fierce phantom resembling a giant Peng appeared behind him, radiating a golden hue. This was the Zhuke of the 4 symbols, though it had been wildly modified by him. Li Qi waved goodbye to the village. With a cry from the Peng, its wings spread wide behind him. He transformed into a golden phantom, soaring upward until he vanished from sight. This scene went unseen by anyone. Only the donkey woke from its slumber, staring longingly in the direction Li Qi had left. In the dead of night, high above the ground, Li Qi was traveling using the Kunpeng body. Several days had passed since he left the village, and the 3,000 miles of mountains had long been left behind. In Li Qi's heart, the fearsome bird he had painstakingly cultivated was indeed the Kunpeng. No one could convince him otherwise. Although using the Kunpeng body was quite draining on his spiritual power. However, he had many rings, so opening a few more would surely yield all sorts of strange items for free. Spirit stones were no exception. This journey from the village to the easternmost part of the Taoyao kingdom at the Tongtian River was a long one. From the words of the fisher girl, it seemed that the Taoyao kingdom had a rather special location. To the west was a towering mountain range, and to the east was a broad river spanning 1,000 miles. To the north lay a vast desert, while to the south was a barbarian nation that often clashed with the Taoyao kingdom. The fisher girl had come from the other side of the mountain. In her words, that side was rich in spiritual energy, and the cultivation world was flourishing. Li Qi was now heading to the eastern continent, because there were several cultivation sects located there. The mountain range and river seemed to act as a cage, causing the Taoyao kingdom situated in the middle to have thin spiritual energy and rare cultivators. It's fine that there are no cultivators, at least the common people can live a bit more peacefully. In the cultivation text, Li Qi had read those evil cultivators would slaughter people and cities without hesitation, terrifying indeed. Suddenly, he noticed thick black smoke billowing below with flames shooting high into the sky. Li Qi frowned, his eyes flashing with golden light, as he activated the Kunpeng's extreme sight. Once he discerned what was happening on the ground, he was filled with murderous intent and dove down toward the earth. Below was a sizable farmhouse. At that moment, however, corpses were piled up like mountains, burning together with the entire farmhouse in the raging flames. In front of the fire stood a group of bandits, coldly watching everything. Boss, you're brilliant. The several farmhouses we've slaughtered along the way have not only yielded riches, but also uncovered a few spiritual seedlings. Hearing his subordinate's flattery, the leader spat on the ground. Bah, what spiritual seedlings? This is gold, the capital for our brother's wealth and glory." As soon as he said this, the bandits all burst into loud laughter, their cackles growing increasingly sinister in the flames. Suddenly, a golden light descended heavily, kicking up a storm of dust. Li Qi emerged, gripping his black sword. He recognized this group. They were the ones who had taken those Tang children into the 3,000 miles of mountains 3 years ago. Seeing this scene, the bandits were instantly taken aback. After exchanging glances, they all threw their valuables to. Then the bandit leader stepped forward. Although fear lurked in his eyes, he still bowed respectfully to Li Qi. "We did not know the immortal's esteemed presence was upon us, and failed to give a proper welcome. These belongings on the ground are all we possess. Could the immortal spare us our lives?" At this moment, sensing the strong smell of blood, Li Qi's brows were already tightly knitted, and the black sword in his hand hummed ominously. "I ask you, answer. If there's a single lie, you all shall perish." Upon seeing Li Qi's murderous aura, the bandit leader surprisingly became less afraid, his eyes turning fierce again. "Looking at the immortal like this, it seems you have no intention of letting us go. If that's the case, why should we listen to you? To speak the truth, even I can't tolerate the things we've done. Brothers, it's time to split up and run. Whoever escapes is lucky." Watching the bandits flee in all directions, Li Qi raised his hand and drew his sword. In an instant, he transformed into a shadow, weaving through the bandits like a midnight butterfly. Immediately, blood mist erupted and heads and limbs flew. In just a few breaths, the bandits were reduced to a ground littered with corpses. Only the bandit leader remained collapsed on the ground, scared to the point of losing control of his bowels. "Immortal, spare my life." Looking at the bandit chief, who lay on the ground like a lump of mud, repeatedly bowing and pleading for mercy, Li Qi's expression was cold as he raised his hand and severed the tongue with a single strike. Then he grabbed the bandit chief's head with one hand, while quickly forming a seal with the other. "The 3 souls are already gone. Where do they remain? The 7 spirits come seek with intent. Soul search." In an instant, a gust of ominous wind swept through, and the bandit chief began to foam at the mouth and tremble all over. As scenes emerged in his mind, Li Qi's forehead bulged with veins. This group was originally just a bunch of small thugs engaged in petty schemes in the Taoyao kingdom. Later, they got entangled with the monster in the abandoned well and acquired a magical artifact to test their spiritual roots. They specifically targeted those foolish children who possessed spiritual roots, sending them into the vast mountains. There they learned some skills from the monster and discovered what lay on the other side of the great river. In the shadowy black markets, a child who had never practiced cultivation but possessed spiritual roots could fetch a sky-high price. Thus they hatched this idea, intending to abduct those foolish children just as before. However, the new emperor of the Taoyao kingdom decreed that the widowed, the orphaned, and the lonely should be cared for by the government. Unable to find an opportunity, they resorted to robbery, murder, and arson. Such behavior deserves death. Li Qi retracted his hand, a blade of light flashed, and the head fell to the ground. He then formed a seal with both hands, casting the great fireball technique along with the wind-calling technique. He incinerated this group of bandits to ashes and then scattered their ashes as well. At that moment, the raging fire engulfing the entire village grew fiercer with the sound of crackling as beams fell and burned. Gazing at the innocent lives lost in the flames, Li Qi sat cross-legged. Heavenly Dao's decree: transcend your lonely souls, all ghosts and spirits, all beings who are blessed, those with heads transcend, those without heads are reborn. After the ritual, Li Qi again formed a seal, casting the earthly burial technique to bury all traces of this. Only then did he notice the 3 children tied up on the ground who had fainted. After checking, he found that they all possessed mixed spiritual roots. Is such talent really suitable for the world of cultivation? At this moment, the sky was already lightening, the dawn approaching. Li Qi formed a seal to summon a gentle breeze, carrying them towards the nearest city. Upon reaching the city, he directly delivered the 3 children to the government, briefly explaining the situation. Before leaving, he did not forget to give them a few copies of Tiangong Kai Wu. These were for carpenters, stonemasons, and similar artisans. He refrained from leaving any powerful secret arts or cultivation techniques, fearing they might be consumed by hatred as they grew up, leading them down a path of no return. Thinking of this, Li Qi couldn't help but recall the dozen or so Tang family children in the vast mountains. They would only face disdain and discrimination outside. It was better for them to live in the mountains for a lifetime. The sun was just right, and the breeze was gentle. Li Qi walked to a secluded spot, casting the Kunping transformation. He soared into the sky, instantly vanishing. 2 days later, in the Taoyao kingdom in the far east was Tianshui city. The name Tianshui was derived from its backing against the Tongtian River, as the river's waters were endless, seemingly flowing down from the heavens. I've finally arrived. Looking at the city within arm's reach, Li Qi smiled with joy. Once he entered the city, he was astonished to find that Tianshui city, though small in appearance, was bustling with activity. The roads in the city were wide with shops lining both sides, and many people were haggling with the shopkeepers, the sounds of chatter rising and falling. Among them, many individuals exuded waves of magical energy, though they were mostly low-level qi refinement cultivators. In front of a master like him at the 9th level of qi refinement, they were hardly worth mentioning. Watching the lively scene, Li Chuyi's eyes curved into crescents, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth, revealing shallow dimples. He decided to treat himself to a hearty meal. Not only because he hadn't gone through foundation establishment and fasting, but in his heart being able to eat was a blessing. At the same time, it was also a good opportunity to strengthen his relationship with the Heavenly Dao. After walking a few steps, Li Chuyi suddenly felt something hard beneath his foot. He instinctively looked around only to meet the gaze of an old man. The two stared at each other for a long time, the atmosphere slightly tense. Young friend, do you share with those who see? Old man, you're joking. I don't understand what you're saying at all. Kid, there's a huge golden bean under your foot. Do you really think I'm blind? Old man, you're joking again. This is merely the travel expenses my father worked hard for. How could I waste it on outsiders? In front of Li Chuyi was a white-haired old man, his yellowed teeth clicking as he bit down. Never had he encountered such a disrespectful young person. It was simply a disgrace to the youth. Kid, I've lived in Tianshui City my whole life, and your face looks unfamiliar. Are you here to seek the immortal across the river? No need to seek. I am the immortal. Li Chuyi replied blandly, though his eyes were vigilant, his feet unwilling to budge an inch. You. Kid, looking at your unfamiliar face, there are indeed some rules to crossing the river to seek the immortal. Don't you want to know? Oh, old man, the sun is blazing. Why don't we find in and enjoy ourselves and discuss our life ideals? Let's go. Let me support you. Mind the dog poop underfoot. Li Chuyi, with a face full of sincerity, also bent down to pick up a gold ingot the size of a thumb from under his foot. This scene made the old man's eyes twitch, continuously thinking to himself what kind of creature this was. However, the next few hundred meters made the old man doubt his life, because Li Chuyi continuously picked up gold beans, silver beans, and even 2 girls' pouches. As for the 2 pouches, he merely picked them up to look at before casually discarding them. He had read the tragic history of a certain predecessor with words that were profound and thought-provoking. The predecessor said that one must never harbor greed for items of unknown origin belonging to women, as they could lead to karmic retribution, costing one a lifetime in return. Li Chuyi deeply agreed with this. However, he accepted the silver and coins with a smile, although they weren't of much use to him. Picking up money was a joy, and it made him very happy. Thus, he decided to treat the Heavenly Dao to a few extra dishes later. The inn they arrived at was lavishly decorated with exquisite and expensive dishes. Li Chuyi knew the old man looked at him unfavorably, wanting to swindle him, but he wasn't very concerned about it. Looking at the table full of delicious dishes, following his usual practice, Li Chuyi asked for an extra set of chopsticks and added a little of each dish to his plate. The old man curiously asked, and Li Chuyi directly replied that it was for honoring his father. This instantly filled the old man with guilt, feeling he had misjudged this child, realizing how good he truly was. Child, I know you are here to seek the immortal. You are quite lucky. The ferry to the mortal realm only sails once every 3 months, and you've caught it just tonight. Haha, I knew I was lucky. Upon hearing this, Li Chuyi burst into laughter. Of course, he didn't forget to add a few pieces of fatty meat to the extra plate in front of him. Child, don't be too happy too soon. This boat is not so easy to board. Old man, what do you mean by that? Li Chuyi filled the old man's cup. Seeking immortality is difficult. For ordinary people, boarding the ship requires 50 Tao Yuan jade, and who among them has such financial power? The old man took a sip of wine and sighed. Li Chuyi knew what Tao Yuan jade was. It was a specialty of the Tao Yao kingdom, worth 200 taels of gold each, and even more expensive in other countries. However, he had opened quite a few within a ring. Not only that, but once you leave, your life and death are determined by fate. The dangers and fortunes are unpredictable. Child, have you truly made your decision? The old man's eyes flashed with a trace of nostalgia, his tone revealing a sense of regret. Li Chuyi certainly understood the cruelty of the immortal cultivation world. After all, he had accidentally disturbed many predecessors' graves in the mountains. Most of them had gone out seeking immortality, experiencing a lifetime of deceit and treachery, and returned home, after losing hope of breaking through, only to find that old friends were hard to find, eventually fading away in solitude. And the most common phrase they left behind was, "In the next life, I only envy the mundane and not the immortals." But for Li Chuyi, he feared nothing. He had a father, and there was nowhere in the vast world he could not go. He brightened his eyes and said, "I understand all this, but I have already made up my mind. May I ask, old man, when and where shall we board the ship tonight?" "At midnight, head west out of the city for a mile to the Tongtian River ferry." "Then thank you, old man. Let's go, cheers." After a satisfying meal, Li Chuyi bid farewell to the old man at the tavern's entrance. "Child, if you want to know where to board the ship, you could ask anyone. It's just a pity that the old man made you waste a table of dishes." The old man stroked his white beard, smiling somewhat mischievously. At that moment, Li Chuyi raised his foot, and pulled out 2 golden beans from under his shoe. What? Oh, just a meal, no big deal. The old man. After saying goodbye to the old man, Li Chuyi casually wandered around the city for a while before heading straight to the Tongtian River. In just over a mile, he arrived in the blink of an eye. Looking at the vast dark waters of the Tongtian River, Li Chuyi's heart surged. On this vast river, the fierce winds are swirling the dark clouds. To this I must say, wow, the waves are huge. Suddenly, many people cast looks at Li Chuyi thinking, look, there's an illiterate, and look, there's a fool. At that moment, a figure approached Li Chuyi. This brother, my name is Fang Yuan, may I ask if we can become friends? Hearing someone seemingly speaking to him, Li Chuyi turned to look. Oh my, looking at this brother, he was quite plump with a round belly, yet his head was a large square shape. Indeed, he truly lived up to his name, Fang Yuan. Brother, is it my strange appearance that makes you silently mock? No, brother, don't misunderstand. I am a cultured and good person. Li Chuyi hurriedly waved his hands, showing a friendly, harmless smile. By the way, my name is Li Chuyi, named so because my mother gave birth to me on the first day of the month. After confirming that Li Chuyi had no unusual gaze, Fang Yuan finally breathed a sigh of relief, then sighed again. Brother Chuyi, I know my appearance is strange, and it is too difficult to find friends who do not judge based on looks. Seeing the little fat man looking a bit down, Li Chuyi decided to be a good person and give him some moral support. Brother Fang, looks are given by our parents. When we encounter those who take pleasure in ridiculing others based on their appearance, we can use our fists to change their mindset. But Brother Chuyi, what if we cannot win? Then we will disdain him from a philosophical perspective, ignore him in reality, and quietly develop ourselves until we can defeat him. Wise words, the little fat man Fang Yuan said excitedly, as if finding a kindred spirit. Brother Fang, I haven't finished speaking, don't be hasty. Brother Chuyi, please enlighten me. Seeing the little fat man with an expectant face, Li Chuyi looked toward the distant river, placing his hands behind his back, then cleared his throat. Brother Fang, do you know the ancient saying, heaven is round, and the earth is square, yet your head is square, and your belly round? Is this not a reflection of the principles of heaven and earth? Moreover, the square shape of your head indicates that you are upright in your conduct. Brother Fang, with such favorable circumstances, you will surely achieve great things in the future. Do not belittle yourself. Listening to Li Chuyi's eloquent speech, the little fat man's eyes welled with tears. No one had ever affirmed him like this. Brother Chuyi, Brother Fang, I understand, let's drink. Everything is in the wine. Li Chuyi flipped his hand and took out a jug of wine from his storage ring. Under Li Chuyi's enthusiastic invitation, Fang Yuan hazily took the jug of wine and took a big gulp. Brother Chuyi, you actually have a storage ring. It seems you also came from the immortal cultivation world of the Western Mountains. Brother Fang, what do you mean by that? Fang Yuan burped slowly and said, because storage rings are valuable, and this Tao Yao kingdom has thin spiritual energy lacking any significant immortal cultivation forces. And those who can produce a storage ring are usually from powerful families. Li Chuyi really wanted to say that he had plenty of storage rings. When he first found one in the mountains, it was quite new, and he wore many on his hands. Later, once the novelty wore off, he chose the one with the largest space to wear. Brother Fang, to be honest, I am a person from the Tao Yao kingdom. This ring was passed down from my ancestors along with a manual for refining qi. I tried to cultivate and by luck managed to draw qi into my body, which is why I decided to seek immortality like my ancestors. Upon hearing this, the little fat man's eyes sparkled with amazement. So that's how it is. Brother Chuyi, you are truly gifted to have entered the refining stage in such an environment. Your path to immortality will surely be smooth. Brother Fang, you are also a person blessed by fate. Your path to immortality will undoubtedly be smooth sailing. The little fat man was unwilling to be outdone. Brother Chuyi, you are charming and dashing. You will surely become an extraordinary cultivator. Brother Fang, you are gentle and kind-hearted. Brother Chuyi, you have a pure heart. Brother Fang, you are knowledgeable and broad-minded. You are skillful in disguise. Brother Chuyi, you are a graceful youth as flowers bloom in spring. As they exchanged pleasantries. What a couple of nonsense, disgusting. A woman passing by could no longer bear it and cursed at the empty space. A trace of embarrassment flashed in the eyes of the two. Cough, cough, Brother Chuyi, the wind by the river is strong. Why don't we sit a bit further away? Brother Fang, you speak wisely. Oh, please lead the way. The two arrived at an open space not far from the dock. After sitting down, they began to chat. Li Chuyi learned that Fang Yuan came from the immortal cultivation world west of the Tao Yao kingdom. According to him, the strength of the immortal cultivation world over there could not compare to that of the Tongtian River's opposite side. They were not even on the same level. This made him think of a certain person, the girl Xianxia. As time slowly passed, more and more people gathered at the ferry. Among them, a large portion had cultivation, but they were all at the low levels of refining qi. In the blink of an eye, the night fell, and the cold moon hung high. Li Chuyi stood by the river, a gust of wind blowing his white robe fluttering and rustling. Brother Chuyi, the boat is coming. Fatty Fang Yuan walked over from the side. At that moment, a thin mist rose over the river, and a giant ship's shadow slowly emerged from the fog. When the giant ship docked, everyone finally saw its full appearance. The ship was about 100 meters long, entirely black wooden, divided into 3 layers, with most of its exposed parts covered in iron armor engraved with densely packed runes. Additionally, this giant ship had 7 sails arranged in an interlaced manner. 6 individuals slowly emerged from the cabin, standing on the deck, looking down and scrutinizing the crowd on the shore. One of them stepped forward and coldly said, "For anyone boarding the ship, it is 20 low-grade spirit stones per person or 50 Taiyuan jades per person. Those with spirit stones will board first, no pushing allowed." 20 spirit stones are quite a significant resource for chi refining practitioners, especially those at lower levels. Brother Fong, do you know which power this giant ship belongs to? Li Chuyi fixed his gaze on the 6 individuals on the deck. 4 of them were also at the 9th level of chi refinement, around 40 years old. The 2 leaders, however, radiated a strong aura of magical power, obviously already at foundation establishment, but they appeared younger. Brother Chuyi, I heard from my family elders that this ship seems to be controlled by a cultivation family, and there are more than 1 golden core practitioners within that family. Moreover, this family is backed by a certain super sect which allows them to engage in this highly profitable business. Li Chuyi nodded, already beginning to board the ship. He estimated that there were over 1,000 people on the shore, excluding those who came to see them off. At least 500 would board the ship. Thus, this trip would indeed be extremely profitable. As boarding commenced, the noise on the shore grew increasingly chaotic, with heart-wrenching cries and sobs echoing. An elderly couple clung tightly to their son, tears streaming down their faces. "My son, do you really have to go and pursue that so-called immortality? Father, mother, this is my dream. I don't want to leave any regrets for myself. My son, I heard people from Tianshui City say that once you go, you may never return. What will happen to us, your old parents? Father, mother, I'm sorry. They'll be filial to you in my next life." Such scenes were plentiful on the shore, as parting life and death could hardly be more poignant. Li Chuyi knew that those boarding with spirit stones mostly came from the Western cultivation world, many of whom were already cultivators, while those exchanging Taoyuan jades for boarding qualifications were predominantly from Taoyao Kingdom. They knew nothing and were filled with a yearning for cultivation, resolutely leaving their loved ones behind, only to end up with tragic consequences. Damn, I can't stand it, a bunch of fools searching for immortality for no good reason. Brother Fong, you go ahead, I'll be right back. Having said that, Li Chuyi walked towards a mother and son, leaving Fatty standing there in a daze. Brother, do you know that cultivating requires a spiritual root? To be honest, I happen to have a magical artifact for testing spiritual roots. How about we? Thus, while others boarded the ship, Li Chuyi weaved through the crowd, beginning his plan to test spiritual roots. Under his earnest persuasion and occasionally revealing the pressure of a 9th-level chi refining master, everyone was quite cooperative. The results were clear. After testing over 100 people, none possessed a spiritual root, but that was the norm. This undoubtedly shattered the hopes of those people, while their parents were deeply grateful to Li Chuyi. Of course, a few were already obsessed with seeking immortality. No matter how Li Chuyi advised them, they remained stubbornly ignorant. By now, 400 people had boarded the ship, all holding spirit stones. Those holding Taoyuan jades may board the ship now. No pushing allowed, consequences at your own risk. A 9th-level chi refining practitioner shouted at the crowd on the shore, his gaze full of disdain. They had seen many like this. People who wished to board the ship without understanding ended up without even a spiritual root, only to die away from home. But soon this practitioner realized something was off. Why were only a few boarding, while so many on the shore remained motionless? Brother Chuyi, what are you doing? Hurry and board. Don't you have spirit stones? I can lend you some. On the deck, Fong Yuan saw Li Chuyi still on the shore and was anxiously stamping his feet. Meanwhile, on the shore, Li Chuyi saw that only a few stubborn fools had boarded, and his smile widened, feeling that his efforts were not in vain. Brother Fong, don't worry, I'm coming now. Li Chuyi hummed a tune, took out 50 Taoyuan jades, and began to board the ship. He also had spirit stones, but clearly spirit stones held greater value for cultivators. On the ship, the 2 foundation establishment practitioners gradually sensed something was wrong. Elders, it's him. It's him. I saw him personally testing the spiritual roots of those people earlier. At that moment, an unattractive girl only at the 2nd level of chi refinement pointed at Li Chuyi, her face displaying flattery and servility. The person she pointed at was indeed Li Chuyi. The foundation establishment practitioner immediately understood the situation and was filled with rage. Kid daring to ruin my family's business, you're asking for death. With that, he raised his hand, and a mass of ice spikes rained down towards Li Chuyi. Li Chuyi, who was smiling as he boarded, saw the foundation establishment practitioner directing his magical power towards him. His smile instantly vanished as he drew his sword and effortlessly swung it forward. The blade left a dark streak in the air, and before the ice spikes could get close, they shattered into countless ice crystals and vanished. Although he didn't know why the other party was attacking him, it was not Li Chuyi's style to just take a hit without retaliating. When he was bitten by a dog on the road as a child, he would bite back. His madness fully displayed. It didn't matter whether the opponent was a Foundation establishment practitioner, he would fight regardless of numbers. 2 instruments, 4 symbols summon the spirit, and transform call forth the python. In an instant, Li Chuyi's eyes turned into golden vertical pupils. A fearsome giant python's phantom coiled around his back. He gripped his long black blade and leaped high, directly slashing at the Foundation establishment practitioner. Seeing this, the Foundation establishment practitioner did not dare to be careless. He first summoned a shield-like magical artifact to block above his head, then made hand seals. The river water was directly summoned, transforming into a spiral of ice blades rushing towards Li Chuyi with murderous intent. The 2 sides collided instantly, and the giant python phantom behind Li Chuyi let out a deafening roar. In an instant, the air was filled with the sound of ice cracking while Li Chuyi swung his blade down upon the shield. The blade, glimmering with dark light, directly split the shield and its owner, sending them flying into the river. But soon the Foundation establishment practitioner charged back out of the water, his expression one of shock. "Let's all attack together. This kid is troublesome." 4 9th-level Qi refining practitioners and another Foundation establishment practitioner immediately summoned their magical artifacts, turning into beams of light to surround and assault Li Chuyi. High above the river, Li Chuyi had already summoned his Kunpeng body. Holding his sword with one hand, his black hair flying, he exuded an overwhelming aura. In an instant, the 2 sides clashed. Below, everyone witnessing this was already terrified beyond measure. Fang Yuan's head was filled with disbelief. But was this still his good brother Chuyi, who was boasting and joking around? It was simply shockingly fierce. The girl who had pointed out Li Chuyi wore a horrified expression, constantly praying for his defeat and death. As for the others, especially those low-level practitioners, they were left dumbfounded, their throats constantly swollen. High above, at an altitude of 100 meters, the magical duel raged on. 2 Foundation establishment cultivators had soared into the sky, each brandishing a flying sword and a demon-subduing staff, both radiating surging arcane power, one infused with scorching heat, the other with biting cold. 4 Qi refinement cultivators likewise unleashed their artifacts, filling the air with streaks of shimmering light. Meanwhile, Li Chuyi's gaze turned icy and sharp. Empowered by the Kunpeng's immense strength, he raised his blade and charged headlong into the fray. Zheng, zheng. The edge of his blade struck the artifacts, releasing sharp, grating metallic shrieks. As he poured spiritual energy into the strike, the straight sword began to fracture, fine cracks spiderwebbing across its surface. At once, Li Chuyi activated his Kunpeng divine form, dissolving into a fleeting wisp of shadow and reappearing 200 meters away. After all, it is but an ordinary blade, incapable of bearing the torrent of spiritual energy or withstanding direct impact against true artifacts. He murmured softly to himself, then clenched his jaw in quiet resolve. When opportunity arose, he would forge a blade of his own. Only 2 criteria mattered: unyielding hardness and peerless sharpness. His opponent's artifacts hovered in midair, spinning slowly like venomous serpents fixated upon him. Li Chuyi sneered. Artifacts? Talismans? Did they truly believe he was unarmed, or that the graves of countless ancient masters had opened for nothing? Granted, many of those relics had long since crumbled with time. Yet today's strategy was simple: overwhelm through sheer quantity, outnumber, outmatch, outmaneuver. With swift, precise hand seals, he summoned a vast array of artifacts and talismans, blanketing the sky like a storm cloud. Then he deployed the divine sense division technique, splitting his spiritual sense into dozens of faint threads, each anchoring itself to a single artifact. This esoteric art had been unearthed from the tomb of a sword cultivator, originally designed to command 10,000 flying swords simultaneously. The spectacle left every onlooker stunned into disbelief. Even the 6 adversaries facing Li Chuyi felt their scalps prickle with dread. They could not fathom how a mere Qi refinement youth, unestablished, unranked, could wield such extraordinary abilities, let alone possess such staggering resources. A misunderstanding, young master. Surely a misunderstanding. One of the Foundation establishment cultivators, sensing imminent disaster, instantly entertained thoughts of retreat. Misunderstanding your immortal grandmother's patience. Take this. In an instant, every artifact and talisman erupted into blinding streaks of light, hurtling toward the 6 foes, not to strike, but to detonate. Boom, boom. All artifacts exploded in unison, blooming like radiant fireworks suspended in the heavens, dazzling and fierce. Yet this beauty concealed lethal intent. The 6 at the epicenter were flung about like fragile moths caught in a maelstrom, tossed, battered, barely clinging to coherence. Moments later, the 4 Qi refinement cultivators plunged into the river below, sending up scattered plumes of spray, their fate uncertain. Even the 2 Foundation establishment cultivators teetered on the verge of collapse. Enough! A thunderous shout erupted from the ship's cabin, followed by a torrent of overwhelming spiritual force. The explosive vortex dissipated instantly, and the two Foundation establishment cultivators were gently guided back onto the deck. From the cabin emerged a middle-aged man clad in violet robes flanked by a crimson-robed woman and two elderly matrons. Brother Chuyi, this man's aura matches that of my sect's ancestral elder. He's a golden core cultivator. Flee at once. Fong Yuan, the stout youth on deck, panicked instantly upon sensing a golden core presence and shouted urgently to Li Chuyi. Hearing golden core, Li Chuyi lost all composure. That single display of power had already left him awestruck. Outmatched. Yes, but he still had a trump card, his father. Hovering midair, he called out boldly, "Senior, surely a golden core cultivator would not stoop to strike a mere chi refinement junior. My father has only me, his sole heir, and watches over me closely. Senior, think carefully." Below, the golden core cultivator suppressed his rising fury. This youth's uncanny prowess suggested indeed a formidable patron behind him. "Young master, I now understand the full circumstances. Pray descend for discussion." "Senior, think carefully." Li Chuyi remained aloft, unmoving. "Young master, I shall give you a full explanation. Please come down." The golden core cultivator drew a slow, steadying breath. "Senior, see, I am thinking carefully. Now, will you descend, or not?" His fists clenched, veins pulsed angrily along his temples. Oh, on deck the fallen cultivators had been hauled from the river. Though grievously wounded, none faced mortal peril. Li Chuyi stood firm on the shore, locked in silent confrontation with the vile-trobed golden core cultivator. The elder spoke first. "I am Helian Qing, third elder of the Helian clan. May I ask your name, young master?" "Senior, my father has only me, his sole heir." Helian Qing exhaled steadily and continued, "Young master, may I inquire after your sect or master?" "Senior, my father has only me. Enough? If you refuse to speak, I shall not press further." Before Li Chuyi could reply, Helian Qing cut him off. "Young master, I shall dispense with formality. Though my Helian clan struck first, our action was not without justification. You tested the spiritual roots of those individuals, yet they chose not to board our vessel afterward. That cost us revenue. Trivial in the eyes of cultivators, perhaps, yet vital to our clan, where countless members lack spiritual roots and rely upon such worldly earnings. You have vented your anger, young master. Might we not each yield a step and part ways in peace?" Hearing this reasoning, Li Chuyi acknowledged he had indeed severed a steady stream of income. But youth, after all, is impetuous. He had entered this vast world brimming with vigor and pride. When displeased, he acted without hesitation, weighing consequences only after the deed was done. Still smiling, he replied, "Very well, whatever the senior decides. Then please board the vessel. Your 20 spirit stones shall be waived." "Senior, boarding is unnecessary. I just recalled urgent matters elsewhere. I must take my leave." Li Chuyi turned and strode away. Prudent men avoid standing beneath crumbling walls. "Brother Chuyi, wait. I too suddenly recall pressing family affairs. Let us travel together." Seeing Li Chuyi depart, Fong Yuan hurried to disembark. His logic was simple. Having earlier urged Li Chuyi to flee, he was clearly implicated as an accomplice. Remaining aboard alone risked retaliation, perhaps being tossed into the river to feed the fish. Curiously, as Fong Yuan leapt from the deck, he seized a moment of distraction to deliver a thunderous slap across the face of the female cultivator who had earlier accused Li Chuyi. She spat out broken teeth, her cheek swelling grotesquely. Li Chuyi, witnessing this, eyes gleaming, raised a thumb in silent, unreserved admiration. No sooner had Fong Yuan reached shore than Li Chuyi wove a hand seal, summoning a gentle zephyr that carried them both swiftly away. Helian Qing watched their retreating figures, his expression dark and inscrutable. Set sail? The ferry of mortals gradually vanished into the mist. Yet the onlookers ashore lingered long after, having witnessed the awe-inspiring clash of cultivators, a spectacle both magnificent and unattainable, for that door would never open to them. The scene shifted. Li Chuyi and Fong Yuan halted at another stretch of riverbank. Turbulent waters crashed against the shore, bursting into frothy white blossoms. "Brother Chuyi, you deceived me utterly. You claimed your ancestors' legacy granted you just enough fortune to draw chi into your body. Yet you bested Foundation establishment cultivators as if swatting flies." Fong Yuan wore a wry, disbelieving smile, utterly shaken. "Brother Fong, if I told you every skill I possess was found not forged, would you believe me?" Beside him, Li Chuyi's eyes crinkled warmly, his expression disarmingly sincere. "Senior Brother Chu, you're serious?" Fong Yuan's lips curled upward in obvious disbelief. Seeing this, Li Chuyi could only shake his head helplessly. Though blessed by the Heavenly Dao itself and endowed with extraordinary fortune, these advantages were indeed fortuitous, acquired, not earned. Indeed, lies often prove more persuasive than truth. "By the way, Senior Brother Fong, do you know of any other means to cross the Tongtian River?" "Senior Brother Chu, to my knowledge, the ferry has long been monopolized by the Helian clan, sailing only once every 3 months. Then why not build our own vessel? Li Chuyi asked, curiosity flickering in his eyes. Senior brother Chu, the Tontian River spans 1,000 li in width. Even spirit craft require 5 days and 5 nights to traverse it. Moreover, the currents grow ever more violent near the river's heart. Ordinary vessels would shatter instantly, leaving no trace of crew or craft. Night deepened thick and cool as water. Beneath the silver chill of the moon, 2 silhouettes stood locked in silent contemplation, brows furrowed, thoughts entangled like knotted silk. Oh. 2 sighs rose in unison. They glanced at each other, then lowered their heads once more. At that moment, something miraculous unfolded. The river's surface began to ripple, and tiny heads emerged one by one, small turtles, each no larger than a fist. Stretching their slender necks, the little creatures gazed upward with pea-sized eyes gleaming like polished jade beneath the moonlight, curious and unblinking. Senior brother Chu, look quickly. Li Chuyi lifted his gaze, and a faint knowing smile tugged at his lips. Senior brother Fong, I believe we've found our way across. Their eyes, so familiar, stirred memories of the 3,000 li mountain range. A time when 10,000 beasts paid homage. The reign of the forest sovereign. How deeply he cherished those days. No sooner had the words left his mouth than the river erupted in thunderous upheaval. From the churning depths rose a colossal turtle, its shell spanning nearly 10 meters, radiating an aura both ancient and ineffable. Bathed in moonlight, its carapace was obsidian black, etched with deep fissures and intricate interwoven patterns. A demonic beast. Senior brother Chu, Yuan. Fong Yuan recoiled in terror, dragging Li Chuyi backward. Senior brother Fong, this is our fairy, not a monster. There's no need to fear. And please, call him brother turtle, not demonic beast. Li Chuyi gently but firmly held Fong Yuan in place. Cross the river. Yes, cross the river. Upon the Tontian River, 2 figures stood atop the vast, slow-moving back of the great turtle. Fong Yuan stood utterly bewildered, his eyebrows slumped low over his square face, forming a comically exaggerated character for bewilderment. He couldn't even recall how, or why, he'd climbed aboard the turtle's back. Senior brother Fong, snap out of it. Come help me set up shelter. I'd rather not endure sun and wind upon the open river. Li Chuyi was already erecting a canopy, his movements swift and practiced. The turtle's back spanned 10 meters, more than ample space for 2 shelters. Oh, senior brother Chu, where did you get all this? These? I lived alone in the mountains for 3 years, prepared them then. Li Chuyi laughed heartily, then bowed slightly toward the turtle beneath him. Brother turtle, my sincerest apologies. Soon 2 compact shelters stood firm, anchored not just with rope, but with subtle formation arrays to withstand gales. He knew few formation arts. The cultivation manuals he'd inherited contained scant instruction on them. This scarcity alone spoke volumes. The path of formations was so profoundly demanding that most cultivators dared not tread it. Sunrise and moonset passed in the blink of an eye. 2 days and 2 nights slipped away. The great turtle moved swiftly yet with uncanny steadiness, proof enough that it was no ordinary beast. During those 2 days, Li Chuyi alternated between seated meditation and introspective review of his entire cultivation foundation. Though fate had showered him with blessings, the limitations of his homeland, Taoyao Kingdom, meant his collection of cultivation texts, though vast, contained few truly exceptional works. The result was breadth without depth, his knowledge sprawling, yet his practical mastery narrow. Only 3 techniques stood out: the secret art of the 4 celestial forms, the art of spiritual sense division, and the blade he wielded. He cultivated the 5-element arts, but each manual was merely the least flawed among mediocre choices. The resulting spiritual energy possessed no distinguishing power. That he could crush foundation establishment cultivators despite being only at the 9th layer of chi refinement owed, in his own estimation, to one singular advantage: an excellent father. From the instant he acknowledged the Heavenly Dao as his patriarch, everything within him had transformed. His physique, his comprehension, his very essence. Even his dantian was so vast, he had never truly felt it full. Each breakthrough came only after straining to its absolute limit. Thus, upon entering the cultivation world, his first priority would be to acquire 5 superior cultivation manuals. He would reforge his entire reservoir of spiritual energy, condensing, refining, purifying, before advancing to foundation establishment. As for locating rare, peerless manuals, a chuckle escaped him. To the son of Heaven's Dao, was such a thing even a challenge? His attention now turned back to the great turtle beneath him. He had already mastered 2 of the 4 celestial forms, and here before him sat a living, breathing spirit tortoise. Surely he thought this was no coincidence. Grinning with exaggerated deference, he sent a humble, almost mischievous transmission of intent. Brother turtle, might I? Half a day passed in silence. The river and sky merged into one seamless expanse, pure, unblemished, radiant under the solitary full moon. They had reached the river's heart, where calm waters masked a ferocity rivaling that of a ravenous tiger. Fong Yuan trembled inwardly. Just moments earlier he'd tossed a wooden plank into the current, only to watch it disintegrate into dust. Yet the great turtle remained utterly unmoved. Its shell emitted a soft, arcane luminescence, as if effortlessly parting the torrent with sovereign command. Those deep intersecting grooves upon its carapace, surely not natural. They bore the deliberate precision of artifice carved by some unseen hand. Li Qi stared entranced, lost in the profound geometry unfolding before him. Suddenly a surge of intuition blazed across his spiritual sea, brilliant, instantaneous, like lightning cleaving primordial chaos. In that flash he seized the spark. A complete cultivation manual unfurled before his inner vision. The profound primordial heavy water scripture. A water element cultivation art divided into 9 layers, each corresponding precisely to one of the 9 great realms of immortal cultivation. Chi, refinement, foundation, establishment, golden core, nascent soul, divine transformation, void, refinement, body, integration, tribulation, transcendence, and grand ascension. Its cultivated spiritual energy was not only exceptionally dense, but weighed upon the soul like 10,000 tons of mountain stone. Moreover, at the 3rd layer, practitioners could refine all waters under heaven into heavy water, a substance so rare and potent it commanded reverence across the entire cultivation world. An auspicious encounter, truly extraordinary. Time to offer extra incense to Father Heaven. Li Qi chuckled softly to himself. No sooner had he resolved to seek superior 5-element manuals than this divine scripture appeared. What else could this be called? The mark of a fortune-blessed prodigy. And not far ahead, cutting through the waves, sailed a large vessel, the mortal ferry. Cultivators on deck activated the ship's formation arrays to resist the river's crushing pressure. On the 3rd deck, inside an elegantly antique chamber, a woman clad in crimson robes gazed absently at the churning waters, flanked by 2 elderly maids. Her features were noble and exquisite, her eyes limpid as autumn lakes, her entire presence transcendent, ethereal. Young mistress, once we cross this Sanly peril, we shall reach the eastern cultivation realm. There the land stretches boundlessly, brimming with spiritual energy and dotted with countless blessed lands and immortal realms. That the Burning Heaven sect, the foremost among the 12 supreme immortal sects, has dispatched a golden core cultivator to escort you speaks volumes about your worth. Young mistress, your innate fire attribute, divine root, is peerless. At 18, you've already reached the 7th layer of Qi refinement. Foundation establishment before 25 is all but assured. Your path to immortality will be smooth and unobstructed. The elder maid watched her with tender affection. The young mistress, however, merely smiled faintly, her delicate fingers resting beneath her chin as she leaned against the windowsill, her expression tinged with quiet weariness. Auntie, all I wish for is sleep, not cultivation. Look at that young master at the ferry dock. Also 18, yet he's already at the 9th layer of Qi refinement and can overwhelm foundation establishment cultivators as if they were children. So why exhaust oneself? Sleep is infinitely more pleasant. The 2 maids exchanged helpless glances. This young mistress possessed unmatched talent, yet refused cultivation, preferring instead the simple, unhurried life of an ordinary noblewoman. Young mistress, that youth has offended the Hellion clan, affiliated with the Burning Heaven sect. He'll likely never cross this river, and his cultivation will stall forever. Truly. She gazed into the distance, and in that instant her eyes lit with sudden brilliant wonder. Momo looked quickly at the back of the boat. Is that the young master at the ferry? The red-clad woman exclaimed with delight as the giant turtle moved slightly faster than the ferry, allowing them to see each other. At that moment, a gust of river wind blew, scattering the woman's long hair that flowed over her shoulders, causing the ribbon on her head to flutter into the air. Meanwhile, Li Qi was practicing his sword. Under the vast starry sky, his sword danced effortlessly in his hand, exuding an aura of sword intent like a ram's horn. Fang Yuan clapped enthusiastically beside him, diligently playing the role of a supporter. Young hero, your skills are truly impressive. Your sword technique is remarkable. Suddenly, Li Qi instinctively reached out into the air. In his hand, he grasped a red ribbon that belonged to a woman carrying a faint floral fragrance. In an instant, his mind trembled violently, causing a slight disorder in his Danshan's energy. To find such an object on this vast river, what kind of fate must this be? Li Qi's expression turned exceptionally sharp, and he swiftly drew his sword, striking with the force of collapsing mountains. Instantly, the ribbon was reduced to tatters. Yet it wasn't over. He continued to seal his fingers with one hand, invoking the great fireball technique, completely turning it to ash, which then scattered with the wind. Only at this moment did Li Qi slowly exhale. He did this because he often recalled the autobiography of the elder and the story of Shimen Guanjin. The bloody history of the predecessors made him understand that there was great terror in this realm, hence, he always kept a line in his heart. That line was, anything can be picked up, but anything belonging to a woman must not be touched. However, his strange reaction and actions left Fang Yuan dumbfounded. and even Brother Turtle turned his head, his small eyes wide with astonishment. This scene was completely witnessed by the red-clad woman. Yet she showed no signs of anger. Instead, she revealed a hint of her pearly teeth and let out a tinkling laugh. Brother Chuyi, look ahead. Fang Yuan pointed ahead, yet his body instinctively shrank back into the small shelter. At this moment, the giant turtle and the fairy were no more than 50 meters apart, and they could clearly see each other. Wow, how did we encounter this vast river? Li Chuyi's brows furrowed tightly, as if he had swallowed a fly. Young friend, to meet in the heart of this river is also fate. Why not come aboard and chat? Helian Qing instantly flashed from the cabin to the deck, but his heart was already shaken to the core. The spiritual turtle was ferrying him. What unsettled him the most was that he felt no fluctuations of spiritual energy from that giant turtle. Only that mysterious aura made him feel trepidation, and those who evoked such reactions were none other than powerful cultivators. At this moment, he truly felt that there was a high figure behind the other party, sincerely inviting him. Elder, I am my father's only child. Elder, my brother is also his father's only child. On the turtle's back, the two exchanged glances, silently communicating their understanding. Then Li Chuyi sent a message to the giant turtle. Brother Turtle, can you go a bit faster? I have some grievances with those people. In an instant, it seemed as if an arrow cut through the river and sky, leaving the group on the ferry dumbfounded. Seeing the other party's actions, Helian Qing's entire body surged with energy, his face turning ashen. He nearly blurted out, "Are you calling me a turtle?" At that moment, his divine sense was in turmoil, as if an overwhelming terror was about to descend, causing him to hurriedly retreat back into the cabin. Meanwhile, Li Chuyi saw that the ferry had been left far behind, however his palms were still sweating profusely. This was because when Brother Turtle brushed past the large ship, he once again caught a whiff of the same floral fragrance as the ribbon. This made him feel as if he were facing a great enemy, and he dared not cast even a sideways glance. Brother Turtle, can you go a bit faster? The following journey was surprisingly calm. The two chatted and joked without restraint. Fang Yuan mentioned that many people from his family came here seeking immortality and enlightenment. For instance, he himself was 20 this year at the 5th layer of Qi refinement, and with a sect token in hand, he could bypass the entrance examination. Besides, there was a girl he grew up with and had a very good relationship with who had joined that sect 2 years ago. This shocked Li Chuyi greatly. Fang Yuan's childhood sweetheart must be an exceptionally good girl. They also discussed the world they were about to enter. According to Fang Yuan, the Eastern continent was immense, home to countless mortal kingdoms. However, those cultivation sects always stood high above, dominating the fate of others, with the 12 great sects at the forefront. Do not speak of how cultivators avoid the mundane world and ignore worldly affairs. For cultivators, resources such as wealth, companions, laws, and territory are always the most important. In the blink of an eye, 2 days and nights passed. The two finally saw the riverbank. It was nearing dusk, and flocks of geese flew over from the distant mountains, while fishing boats laden with catch returned from the river with the setting sun, casting a gentle golden hue over the water. In this scene, Li Chuyi could not help but feel stirred. As the geese pass and the boat returns, the sunset scatters golden sands on the river. Fang Yuan applauded. I didn't expect the young hero to be skilled in both literature and martial arts. Why, I truly admire you. Li Chuyi cupped his fist, saying, you flatter me. Throughout the journey, the two had grown accustomed to exchanging compliments. After disembarking, Li Chuyi bid farewell to Brother Turtle with tears in his eyes, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. In his storage ring, there was still a large mass of Brother Turtle's essence blood, emanating an ethereal aura, which was quite remarkable. Yet as he watched Brother Turtle vanish swiftly into the river, Li Chuyi felt quite disoriented. But he soon became joyful, feeling that the spiritual energy in the world was incredibly abundant, making him tremble uncontrollably. Even his 5 elements technique began to operate autonomously, hinting at a breakthrough in his realm. Brother Chuyi, how about I accompany you for a bit longer? Fang Yuan displayed a look of reluctance, feeling sad that he had finally met someone who did not dislike his appearance, but instead encouraged and affirmed him. Across from him, Li Chuyi jumped up and playfully slapped Fang Yuan on the forehead, laughing and scolding. Have you not had enough to drink? We are cultivators, why be so sentimental? If you don't hurry to that sect, don't blame me if someone else runs off with your future wife. Seeing this, Fang Yuan pouted. Then, Brother Chuyi, I wish you a smooth journey ahead. Li Chuyi laughed heartily as a beam of setting sunlight cast upon him, making him appear like a golden figure. Don't worry, wherever I am, the weather will always be clear after the rain. As the sun completely set, leaving a red line on the horizon, Li Chuyi gazed at Fang Yuan's departing figure and suddenly came to a realization. Cultivating immortality should be like this. There will always be old friends leaving and new ones arriving. 2 poles, 4 symbols summon spirits to take shape, please palm. Looking at the fierce shadow of the Kunping appearing behind him, Li Chuyi thought to himself that indeed casting spells while chanting incantations had a greater momentum. Then the Kunping spread its wings, and Li Chuyi instantly transformed into a stream of light, disappearing from sight. In the air, he took out a piece of jade slip that Feng Yuan had impressed with a map, but it only depicted a very small area. After a brief glance, he realized he was currently in a mortal kingdom with no nearby cultivation sects. He then headed towards the nearest city. Add more dishes today, no matter what I must treat my father to more dishes. As the seasons change, summer gives way to spring. 3 months have swiftly passed. During this time, Li Chui has deliberately traveled to remote places. The child of heavens, Dao's harvest, need not be mentioned. Although there are few exceptional finds, the old saying remains true: quantity wins out. It is worth noting that along this journey he encountered many unseen exotic beasts, harvesting their essence blood to continue refining his 4 symbols Dharma body. What he regretted was that although the essence blood of Brother Turtle could only be refined a little, it mixed with the other essence blood, resulting in yet another bizarre creation. In addition to this, he dispersed his water element mana and began to repractice the Xianxia heavy water. This cultivation method proved to be more difficult than he imagined. In 3 months, he only reached the 4th level of Qi refinement, but now this 4th level water element mana can easily crush his previous abilities. Finally arrived at the Tianyin mountain range. Looking at the ancient trees and strange peaks all around, Li Chuyi's eyes sparkled with excitement. For this eastern cultivation world, one of the 10 scattered cultivator cities, Tianyin City, is located here. The eastern cultivation world is vast, with cultivators as numerous as fish in a river, and while there are many sects, scattered cultivators are countless. Famous mountains, blessed lands, resources, and opportunities are mostly occupied by those sects, but everything must leave a thread of hope. This Tianyin mountain range with abundant spiritual energy is not inferior to the average sect. In the cultivation world, Li has arrived. At this moment, a middle-aged cultivator with a pockmarked face approached on the mountain path, his cultivation roughly at the 5th level of Qi refinement. He appeared warm and smiling, cupping his hands toward Li Chui. Esteemed elder, it seems this is your first time here at Tianyin mountain range. The Tianxin city is shrouded by formations, making it hard for ordinary people to find their way. Would you like me to guide you? Li Chui has not concealed his cultivation on this journey. Being young and trying to hide only invites envy from petty individuals. Just call me Dao, friend, no trouble at all. Li Chui then took out 2 low-grade spirit stones and handed them to the man. He knew that such people often made a living guiding at the mountain entrance. Upon seeing the spirit stones, the pockmarked cultivator's eyes lit up. Dao, friend, please follow me. The 2 walked one after the other on the mountain path. At this moment, 2 other cultivators approached, their cultivation not high, but their appearances were quite distinctive. One looked like a rat's ant, and the other resembled a chubby monk. The 2 supported each other, looking somewhat distracted. The rat's ant patted the chubby monk's shoulder, her face full of, "Brother, it seems this year we will not be able to enter the sect. Why don't we return and consolidate our foundations for another battle next year?" The chubby monk, however, was filled with indignation. It's all because of last night's thunderstorm that stirred the spiritual energy in the mountains. That's why we performed poorly during the trials today. A heavy rain has ruined our dreams of entering the sect. Watching the 2 pass by, Li Chui couldn't help but marvel. Consolidate, a heavy rain, how familiar these. Moreover, from their words, it seems Tianyin City is currently recruiting disciples for some sects. For any sect, a steady stream of fresh blood is indeed the most important. But from what he understood, most sects prefer to go to the mundane world and personally select young individuals with spiritual roots. Alternatively, some old monsters simply leave behind paths of spiritual fate. Anyone who meets the conditions will activate this fate and be led into the sect. Dao, friend, could it be that there are sects in Tianyin City recruiting disciples? Will they accept scattered cultivators? Li Chui asked with some skepticism. The pockmarked cultivator turned back, smiling as he explained, Dao, friend, scattered cultivators do not have the fortune to enter sects. They primarily recruit the good seedlings among the descendants of scattered cultivators or those from cultivation. Dao, friend, although once you embark on the path of cultivation, it becomes increasingly difficult to bear offspring. As your cultivation increases, the probability of offspring possessing spiritual roots will also multiply with the unions between cultivators. Of course, those sects will also set up competition arenas to select some capable scattered cultivators. However, even after entering the sect, scattered cultivators will still be assigned menial tasks. Like the 2 who just passed by, they are going to challenge the arena. After this explanation, Li Chui suddenly understood and quickly cupped his hands to express his gratitude. This made the pockmarked cultivator feel appreciated, as among the scattered cultivators he usually encountered, anyone whose cultivation surpassed him would act arrogantly. The 2 continued walking, and the surroundings gradually became misty until they stopped when the fog thickened, making it impossible to see 5 fingers ahead. Dao, friend, this is the place. It is a fog formation set up by several great cultivators of Tianyin City. Can we just walk through it? Yes, there are fog spirits within the formation that can perceive the mana fluctuations of cultivators. Ordinary people who mistakenly enter will simply be lost and then sent out. The pockmarked cultivator smiled and said, Dao, friend, farewell. Oh, I wish you find your destined fate in this city. Thank you, Dao friend. Li Chuyi also cupped his hands and smiled brightly. Stepping in a whirlwind sensation struck him, and when he opened his eyes again, a city appeared before him. This city stood between two great mountains looking incredibly majestic. At the city gate, cultivators were coming and going dressed in various styles, their cultivation levels varying. Esteemed elder, are you looking to buy a cave abode? Li Chuyi looked down and saw a sweet-looking petite female cultivator around 17 or 18 years old at the second level of Qi refinement, gazing at him expectantly. No need, thank you, Li Chuyi replied as he walked toward the city gate. But the female cultivator persistently followed. Elder, my name is Huang Yinger and my parents are scattered cultivators in this Tianjin city, so I grew up here. You can tell it's your first time here. This is a great place with not only great cultivators overseeing it. Moreover, fighting is prohibited, and there's a vein of spirit stones within the city. Although it's not as good as the sect's blessed lands, it is still a rare treasure for scattered cultivators. Most importantly, the cave abodes bought here come with permanent residency rights and can be passed down unconditionally to descendants. I wonder if the elder has any plans in this regard, but it doesn't matter. I can first show you around. At this moment, Li Chuyi stopped, the corner of his eye twitching. You say it's so good, how come there are still vacancies? Huang Yinger seemed to see hope and immediately smiled brightly. Elder, you know the hardships of scattered cultivators. Our cultivation is obtained little by little through struggles and battles outside. So where are there no casualties? Therefore those cave abodes in the city often have vacancies. Li Chuyi's face flashed a hint of amusement. Cave abodes where people have died. That's unlucky, no thanks. He then continued walking into the city. Yet Huang Yinger still followed closely beside him, chattering nonstop. Elder, it's fine if you don't buy. Oh, let me share some interesting stories from the cultivation world. This is exclusive news among us girls. Elder, do you know about the Red Maple Valley? The Valley Master, a nascent soul great cultivator, was caught by his wife spending the night at the Drunken Fairy Pavilion and was ordered not to enter a cave abode for 50 years nor leave the valley. And there's more. The rare flower prince of Tianju sect rejected the pursuit of many female cultivators, thinking himself indifferent to worldly affairs and focused solely on his path of cultivation. Recently, however, he was exposed by his peers for having an improper relationship with a certain male big shot in the sect. Elder, please slow down, there's more. Then there's Li Dongxin, the sect leader of Pure Yang Palace, who is referred to as the disgrace of the cultivation world by his disciples. This is because he increased the monthly contribution required by his disciples to the sect, and even withheld the spirit stones due to the disciples shamelessly claiming that cultivators must have a spirit of contribution to the sect. Alas, Elder, please slow down. The city of Tianjin was far larger than Li Chuyi had imagined, stretching endlessly before his eyes. Countless heads bobbed in the bustling crowd, creating a cacophony of noise. The streets were wide, paved with massive stones, and there were numerous stalls devoid of shouts. Only the sounds of haggling could be heard. The items on display were bizarre and varied, most of which Li Chuyi had never seen before. On both sides of the street, shops and pavilions towered, primarily controlled by sects or cultivation families. They sold basic elixirs, magical tools, talismans, or acquired spiritual herbs from wandering cultivators. At first glance, it seemed no different from the mortal world, yet it was actually another realm. Senior, why are you walking so fast? Hearing the girl's complaint from behind, Li Chuyi sighed and stopped. This girl truly lived up to her name, chattering incessantly like a yellow oriole. Miss, I think we are around the same age, so please don't call me senior. Also, I really don't need a cave dwelling. Senior, is that really possible? What is your surname? The girl's eyes sparkled with joy. My surname is Li, you can just call me Dao Yuli. Dao Yuli He. What is it? If there's nothing, please stop following me. After saying this, Li Chuyi turned. Don't be in such a hurry, Dao Yuli. Was it that my previous stories weren't interesting? I know more, let me share them with you. The yellow oriole bounced along to catch up. Suddenly, a small stall by the street caught Li Chuyi's eye. May I ask, fellow Taoist, what is the price for the complete guide to basic spiritual herbs and monster beast atlas you have here? The stall owner was an elderly man in a gray robe with a black hat. He glanced at Li Chuyi and then revealed a set of yellowed teeth. Originally, each book costs 10 low-grade spirit stones, but if you want both, I'll let you have them for 15. Li Chuyi nodded slightly, then prepared to take out the spirit stones. 4 stones? Are you trying to cheat someone from T? At this moment, the yellow oriole stepped forward, hands on her hips, looking fierce. She wasn't afraid since fighting was prohibited in Tianjin City. Li Chuyi immediately understood that he had been seen as an easy target. With a dark expression, he tossed 4 spirit stones onto the stall and then turned to leave with the 2 books. The yellow oriole continued to follow him. After the earlier incident, Li Chuyi was no longer so annoyed with her. Dao Yuhuang, may I ask what the Zue Xian Pavilion you mentioned earlier is? Upon hearing Zue Xian Pavilion, 2 blushes appeared on the yellow oriole's face as she stammered. Zue Xian Pavilion, it's that kind of place similar to the brothels of the mortal world. Li Chuyi was momentarily at a loss for words, clearing his throat before shaking his head. Dao Yuli, please don't look down on those women. The yellow oriole seemed quite concerned about this, and her smile faded, as she became serious. Dao Yuli, they are actually pitiful. It is said that once you enter the path of immortality, it is as deep as the sea. Once they step into the world of cultivation and see its vastness and beauty, even if their talents are lacking, how many can return to a normal life? For them lacking combat skills and deceitful tactics, there are few paths left to take. Seeing the yellow Oriole's strong reaction, Li Chuyi quickly smiled wryly and waved his hand. Dao Yuhuang, you misunderstand. I have no opinion about them, I simply didn't know. Really? Really? Then Dao Yuli, do you want to buy a cave dwelling? Li Chuyi wandered around the city while the yellow Oriole persistently followed, showing her remarkable perseverance. Dao Yuli, I've shared so many interesting stories with you on this journey. Oh, please don't think that the cultivation world is all fun and games. Being careless out there can be dangerous. The cultivation world can be ruthless. Those interesting stories are just gossip I share with a few friends and are mostly hearsay. After all, we lack talent and resources and dare not venture out to compete for opportunities. These are some of the few pleasures we have in this city. Listening to the girl speak this way, Li Chuyi smiled gently. Dao Yuhuang, I want to sell some damaged magical tools and sell them separately at different shops. Are you familiar with this? Could you guide me? Upon hearing this, the yellow Oriole's eyes lit up. Dao Yuli, this way please. Next, Li Chuyi followed the yellow Oriole as she led him past various sect shops. This was also because he had too many items in hand and feared drawing attention. However, throughout the journey, the yellow Oriole seemed to be pondering her path in the cultivation world, yet she still did not forget to chatter with Li Chuyi. Dao Yuli, do you want to buy a cave dwelling? Along the way, Li Chuyi also understood why the yellow Oriole reacted so strongly when Xianxia Pavilion was mentioned. Because her mother had previously been part of the Xianxia Pavilion and unable to endure the strange looks of others had turned to a better life. Later, when she met her father, they decided to leave the city to seek opportunities after having her. And after that trip, they never returned. However, Li Chuyi now deeply suspected that this girl revealed her family story just to get closer to him with a single ultimate purpose. To sell cave dwellings, classic sales tactics. Perhaps the girl's intentions were not pure, but Li Chuyi still admired her. At such a young age, she could survive alone in the Tianjin city filled with cultivators, as evidenced by her following him the entire way. This girl was indeed very resilient. As the sky gradually darkened at the entrance of the temporary cave dwelling, the yellow Oriole hung her head. Dao Yuli, really won't you buy a cave dwelling? You have so many spirit stones and are renting such an expensive high-grade cave dwelling. Li Chuyi smiled and shook his head. Seeing this, the yellow Oriole's expression fell. Dao Yuhuang, may I ask what type of spiritual root you possess and what cultivation methods you practice? I have 3 attributes: water, wood, and earth, mainly practicing wood attribute cultivation methods. Dao Yuli, is there a problem? Li Chuyi gave a charming smile, turned around, and after a moment returned with a book in hand. Cultivating immortality with water, wood, and earth spiritual roots, invincible. Dao Yuhuang, this is your reward for guiding me. The cave dwelling is off the table. For Li Chuyi, this cultivation method wasn't forbidden to him, but the renaming was. Hey, it was rather addictive. The yellow Oriole didn't realize until she left that the item she held was actually a wood attribute cultivation method that could lead to the completion of the golden core. Watching her leave, Li Chuyi held the token and found the high-grade temporary cave dwelling he had reserved. He paid for a month of spirit stones, costing 10 low-grade spirit stones per day. This high-grade cave dwelling, compared to a low-grade one, included a spirit transformation array, which could assist cultivators in transforming spirit stones and accelerating their cultivation speed. This spirit transformation array was exactly what he needed, because he had exchanged all his belongings for spirit stones totaling over 50,000 low-grade spirit stones. With such wealth, it was astronomical even for foundation establishment cultivators, let alone chi refining cultivators. Still, as the saying goes, one can't help but admire the child of destiny, how terrifying it is. He wanted to exchange for medium-grade spirit stones, but as a chi refining cultivator, he feared being targeted. Upon entering the cave dwelling, the basic setup was quite complete. He casually set up a few restrictions and then studied the spirit transformation array. Looking at the array of colorful spirit stones in his hand, he took out 50 and gently placed them on it. With a burst of light, the cave dwelling shimmered with brilliance and the spiritual energy became dense as water. Full power, begin cultivation. Inside the cave residence, Li Chuyi slowly opened his eyes. A month had passed, and the spirit stones were nearly exhausted. He had advanced the profound primordial heavy water art to the 7th level of chi refinement, a testament to the art's staggering demand for spiritual energy. Li Chuyi rose, pinched his fingers together with one hand, and summoned a swirling orb of water vapor that enveloped him entirely, refreshing his senses in an instant. After exiting the cave residence and returning his access token to the steward, he stepped once more onto the bustling street. Sunlight bathed the world in golden warmth, a gentle breeze stirred without disturbance. Li Chuyi stretched luxuriously, then bent low to pick up a low-grade spirit stone from the ground beneath his feet. A broad smile lit his face, and he hummed a light-hearted tune under his breath. Hey, senior fellow Taoist Li, over here. I'm right here. At the sound, Li Chuyi turned his head to see Huang Inger approaching with cheerful haste. His expression instantly fell. Why does this young lady keep showing up? Senior fellow Taoist Huang truly. I have no need for a cave residence, he said with a wry, resigned smile. What are you talking about? I'm here to return something to you. Huang Inger pulled out a cultivation manual, the very one he had personally revised. Senior fellow Taoist Li, this manual is worth more than a lifetime's worth of cave residences. I must give it back to you. As she extended it toward him, her gaze lingered with unmistakable reluctance. Watching her pained expression, Li Chuyi suppressed a grin. If you don't want it, just discard it. After all, I found it by chance. No loss to me. With that, he turned and walked away. Ridiculously wealthy brat, reckless wastrel. Hearing the young woman mutter behind him, Li Chuyi clenched his fist and held his temper. Strolling along the street, he observed sparse foot traffic. Many shops stood open, yet inside sat only attendants. No patrons at all. Senior fellow Taoist Huang Yu. I know, she interjected brightly. That's exactly why I sought you out. Before Li Chuyi could finish speaking, Huang Inger launched into a rapid animated explanation. Today marks the grand recruitment ceremony of the 12 supreme immortal sects. Everyone's gone to witness the spectacle. No more dawdling. Come with me now. At the rear mountains of Tianjin City, cultivators already thronged in great numbers, eccentrics, prodigies, and marvels beyond counting. What a vibrant scene. Li Chuyi and Huang Inger arrived at the edge of the crowd. Among the assembled cultivators, appearances varied wildly. Some bore swarms of venomous insects across their faces, others carried colossal sand-gored talismans upon their backs. One figure stood out starkly, his entire body petrified into a movement stiff and mechanical, his skin inscribed with dense glowing runes indistinguishable from a lifeless puppet. Many others led exotic spirit beasts, each more astonishing than the last. Yet deep within Li Chuyi's mind, an unsettling fixation lingered, on others' refined blood essence. This year's sect recruitment unfolded in 2 tiers. The first tier welcomed those under 20 years of bonage, possessing superior spirit roots and exceptional innate temperament, destined to become the foundational pillars of immortal sects. The second tier accepted wandering cultivators aged 20 to 40, those whose combat prowess and moral character met rigorous standards. What a magnificent spectacle, truly awe-inspiring. Li Chuyi murmured, eyes alight with wonder. At the center of attention stood the ascension arenas prepared by the sects, none more breathtaking than those erected by the 12 supreme immortal sects. Ordinary arenas rose merely 10 meters high, shimmering with flowing runes and veiled in soft luminous mist. In stark contrast, the 12 supreme sects each unveiled hundredjong radiant stairways, soaring straight into the heavens. These hundredjong stairways tested not only talent and strength, but also willpower, resilience, and spiritual fortitude. Even now, as crowds pressed tightly around the 12 sects platforms, lesser sects watched with bitter envy. Though they had arrived a full month earlier, the most gifted aspirants deliberately delayed their participation, waiting solely for the 12 supreme sects to unveil their trials before stepping forward. Thus, the smaller sects were left to gather only the overlooked remnants, an endless, self-perpetuating cycle of neglect. Amidst the throng, Li Chuyi and Huang Inger observed the spectacle, while muffled clashes and battle cries echoed intermittently from within the luminous mist shrouding the arenas. Senior fellow Taoist Huang, you're under 20, aren't you? Why not try your luck? Li Chuyi asked casually. Me, senior fellow Taoist Li jokes too well. With my mediocre aptitude, even the most modest sect wouldn't grant me a second glance. I was born a wandering cultivator and shall remain one. Besides, don't be deceived by the sea of cultivators before you. Only a handful will ever earn admission. Huang Inger arched an eyebrow and tilted her head, regarding him with amused condescension. Oh, and senior fellow Taoist Li, why don't you take the trial? You're so young, so accomplished, so lavishly supplied with spirit stones, even gifting golden core-level manuals without hesitation. Clearly you hail from some illustrious ancestral clan. Her praise lifted him momentarily, before the latter half gave him pause. Silence. Heaven is my father, all things my teachers. Must I submit myself to any sect? TSK. Immortals themselves couldn't boast more grandiloquence. Meeting her skeptical gaze, Li Chuyi cleared his throat awkwardly. Fine, I admit I know little of these sects. Then let me enlighten you. Huang Inger's eyes sparkled with sudden enthusiasm. First, the 12 supreme sects, the Tian sect. Its territory abounds with blessed spirit mountains and auspicious lands, ruling over 5 empires and 10 royal dynasties. Its disciples. No need to elaborate. I'm uninterested. That sect violates my taboos. Li Chuyi remarked coolly. The Zonggu sect, one of the 12, specializes in necromantic arts, proclaiming it can bury mortals, bury earth, bury heaven itself. Enough. Even more taboo. Huang Yinger drew a slow, steadying breath and raised a clenched fist. The Dang Jianshan sect. Every disciple wields the sword as their core artifact. All are sword cultivators famed for one sword shattering 10,000 techniques, one sword cleaving open the celestial gate. Beside her, Li Chuyi's eye twitched faintly. Cleaving the celestial gate. How terribly arrogant. Unacceptable, equally taboo. Fine, senior fellow Taoist Li. You win, Huang Yinger ground out between clenched teeth. The Hehuan sect. Surely that one's permissible. Huh. No, absolutely not. It's Hall's team with seductive, shameless schemers. You must not go there. Huang Yinger exhaled sharply, her lips trembling slightly. Exhausted from reciting sect lore, she watched helplessly as he dismissed each with flimsy, self-styled taboos. Ah, senior fellow Taoist Huang, weren't there supposed to be 12 supreme sects? Yet I count only 1,100 zhang radiant stairways in the sky. Li Chuyi paused, deliberately recounting them once more. Oh, that missing one is the Xingdao sect. Not worth mentioning. It's weaker than even minor sects, Huang Yinger replied dismissively. Xingdao sect. Upholding heaven's way. A fine name indeed. Senior fellow Taoist Huang, might you tell me more? Huang Yinger stared, speechless, fists tightening. Senior fellow Taoist Li, yes. The Xingdao sect is formally ranked among the 12 supreme sects, yet its territory comprises but a few modest spirit mountains. Moreover, disciples of other sects receive monthly stipends, spirit stones, and qi aggregation pills, commonly called moon payments. Yet the Xingdao sect is destitute. Its members struggle even to afford basic spirit stones for cultivation, let alone pills. Worse still, the sect seems cursed. Its ranks teem with maimed and malformed cultivators. How could such a sect attract ordinary disciples? To preserve its lineage, it scours the mortal realm for children born with physical defects, but who nonetheless possess spirit roots. Thus, from elder to novice, not a single whole person remains within the Xingdao sect. It defies reason how such a sect retains its place among the 12. Having listened intently, Li Chuyi's interest stirred, not diminished but sharpened. A subtle, knowing smile curved his lips. Fascinating. Let's go, see it for ourselves. Is this the assessment point of the Xingdao sect? Before him stood a small wooden shed, inside which sat a disheveled old man with one eye, one arm, and one leg dozing off. Li Chuyi couldn't help but marvel. In front of other immortal sect assessment points, the elders and stewards carried themselves with an air of superiority, emanating a vibe that repelled outsiders. Yet countless cultivators swarmed towards them, while this place was as deserted as if it were infested with venomous snakes and ferocious beasts. Dao friendly, let's go. That person looks quite frightening. Huang Yinger hid behind Li Chuyi, whispering, Don't rush, let's take another look. I feel the name Xingdao sect resonates quite well with me. At that moment, the half-blind old man in the wooden shed slowly opened his eyes, and upon seeing Li Chuyi, his single eye transformed from murky to a chaotic brilliance. Young friend, you have arrived. Li Chuyi's pupils dilated, the surroundings began to blur, and as a whirlwind of chaos spun around him, he felt as if he were falling into one world after another. When his vision finally cleared again, he was astonished to find himself in a strange world. The dim sky revealed nothing, suffused with death and desolation, while the few humans around him were distorted beyond recognition. Yet they continued to toil in their fields as if everything was normal. Ahead lay an altar where people continuously dragged corpses for sacrifice, seemingly suggesting that the height of the remains determined the loyalty of the devotees. A wave of unknown terror, bizarre and oppressive, instantly enveloped Li Chuyi. Suddenly, the gray mist in the distance began to dissipate, and countless figures surged forth from within. Countless flying ships, exotic beasts, and various great formations emerged, led by individuals whose presence was as imposing as a dark rainbow. Li Chuyi was taken aback. Although he couldn't see clearly, he was utterly convinced that all those who appeared were. At that moment, a person rode a horse-like beast with fiery hooves and a body crackling, with purple lightning charging out and standing before all the cultivators. He slowly drew a long knife, turned to face everyone behind him, and roared to the heavens, his voice resonating through the world. In the name of the Xingdao, we march westward. In that instant, Li Chuyi's soul trembled, for at the moment the man turned, he saw an incredibly familiar face. The owner of that face was astonishingly himself. Suddenly, the surroundings blurred again, and when Li Chuyi opened his eyes once more, the bright sun shone down, and he instinctively raised his hand to shield himself from the light, surrounded by the clamor of cultivators. At this moment, he felt as if he had traveled through time. Dao friendly, are you awake? What happened to you? Huang Yinger shook Li Chuyi's arm anxiously. Oh, I'm fine. Li Chuyi regained his senses. However, when he looked at the disabled old man again, his brow furrowed, forming a tight frown. Senior, did you just cast a spell on me? Indeed, this spell is called Lan Ku Imeng. The old man squinted his one eye, a faint smile lingering on his face. So what I just saw was real or merely an illusion? Li Chuyi pressed further. I don't know what you witnessed, or perhaps it was just a dream. Who can say? The old man yawned. In the name of the Xingdao, in the name of the Xingdao, Li Chuyi silently murmured. He then took a deep breath and said slowly, Senior, does the Xingdao sect recruit disciples? Oh, it's been many years since anyone has actively sought to join my Xingdao sect. Are you serious, young man? The old man straightened up, seemingly intrigued. Li Chuyi nodded slowly. Senior, I have some thoughts. Do you know what the term Xingdao means? Hey, please enlighten me. Li Chuyi cupped his hands. At this moment, the old man took out a smoking pipe, took a few strong puffs, and exhaled a long stream of smoke. Xingdao means to walk the path and seek no regrets. That is the essence of Xingdao. Young man, what path do you intend to take? Li Chuyi's eye twitched. It seemed the old man had spoken, yet also as if he had said nothing, for he did not understand. He thought for a moment, his brow relaxing, and said, Me. I walk the path for heaven. Upon uttering this, the old man burst into laughter, revealing a few yellowed teeth. Haha, to walk the path for heaven, young man, you have quite the ambition. However, it reminds me of my days in the mundane realm, making blood oaths with others, drinking and pledging allegiance. Do you truly wish to join my Xingdao sect? Yes. Li Chuyi nodded slowly. Other immortal sects easily have tens of thousands of disciples, or even hundreds of thousands, while my Xingdao sect has less than 200 from top to bottom, and you can't even find a complete person here. You don't mind. I don't mind. Suddenly a trace of faint sorrow flashed in the old man's eyes, and his tone grew somber. My Xingdao sect can't even afford spirit stones for our disciples, let alone gather chi pills, foundation establishment pills, or various supportive elixirs. You harbor no grievances. At this moment, Li Chuyi bent down to pick up a spirit stone from the ground. A smile he couldn't hide spreading across his face. No grievances. The old man. My Xingdao sect occupies a position among the 12 great immortal sects, but is disdained by the entire cultivation world, ridiculed and targeted in secret. Are you not afraid? Not afraid. The old man nodded. Young man, though I do not know what kind of spiritual root you possess, judging by your age or magical power, is remarkably strong for your peers. And my Xingdao sect doesn't have countless spiritual mountains and blessed lands like other immortal sects. There are only a few small hills. Are you truly undeterred? Undeterred. Li Chuyi replied firmly. Good, you are now a disciple of my Xingdao sect. The old man looked at Li Chuyi with a look of satisfaction. This left Li Chuyi utterly bewildered. Is that it? So casual. Cough, Senior, how should I address you? I am called Ban Ba Jian, the guardian elder of the Xingdao sect. However, there are no formalities here. You can call me whatever you wish. Ban Ba Jian. Li Chuyi's eyes widened. Was it really that casual? Cough, cough. Then Elder Jian, what should we do next? Nothing. The Xingdao sect is merely passing through here, so there is nothing to do. After saying this, the old man closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. It was only then that Huang Ying'er timidly stepped out from behind Li Chuyi. Dao friendly, are you really planning to join this Xingdao sect? It feels quite intimidating. Looking at the girl before him, a gentle smile surfaced in Li Chuyi's eyes. That's right. What about you? Do you plan to stay in Tianjin City? Of course. My cultivation talent is limited and my courage is small. I can only stay here. Huang Ying'er appeared somewhat helpless. However, I hope to sell a few more caves. Then I congratulate you in advance. You will definitely be able to sell them. Li Chuyi said earnestly. I observe your facial features, and I can tell you will undoubtedly be a person of great fortune in the future. Mark my words. Then thank you, Dao friendly, for your good wishes. Huang Ying'er smiled radiantly, taking a careful look at Li Chuyi, her eyes crescent-shaped and truly beautiful. May Dao friendly also have an unobstructed path in the future, and may everything go smoothly. She turned to leave, and as she was about to be swallowed by the crowd, she turned back, revealing the same sweet smile she had when they first met a month ago. Dao friendly, may you have smooth sailing. After saying this, she turned and was completely engulfed in the vast crowd as the mountain wind rose, carrying countless fallen leaves and mountain flowers swirling in the air. The two met amid the sea of people, only to return to the sea of people. The years are long, yet they pass in an instant. Elder Jian yawned, squinting as he murmured, this is the life of a cultivator. He added with a rueful tone, this old man grows forgetful. The sect just took a disciple, and I do not even know his name. How pitiful. Li Chuyi's ears flushed crimson, and his cheeks warmed at the words. Elder Jian, my family name is Li, my given name Chuyi. Elder Jian chuckled. Chuyi, a fine name. The first of beginnings, a perpetual renewal, like the yearly fireworks. Elder Jian mumbled the name, and even the clouded pupil of his single eye brightened a little. Boy, prepare yourself. We are leaving. He rose, saying, to have taken a disciple makes this old heart bloom. There is nothing for us to do here. Let us return to the mountain. As he spoke, he produced a bronze drum about half a meter high, running a hand over its face, as if recalling distant memories. This instrument has not been used for many years today, though it will see use. Li Chuyi looked at the drum in surprise. Elder Jian, what is that? This is the welcoming immortal drum. Each of the 12 immortal sects keeps one. It is sounded when recruits return to the mountain. Sadly, our Xingdao sect has not used ours in ages. 1 beat for joy at a good disciple, 2 beats to welcome a disciple home, 3 beats to bless an unobstructed immortal path. Elder Jian said with a grin, then tapped the bronze face lightly 3 times. In an instant, the drum exploded into a sonorous roll that echoed through the Tianyin mountain range. The other 11 great sects were taken aback at the sound, while the ordinary sects listened with rapt delight. At last, a top-tier sect had departed, and it seemed others might profit from the opportunity. Yet when they saw the 1,100-foot light ladders still standing and noticed only the little wooden hut of the Xingdao sect missing, displeasure swept through them. They voiced their curses and scorn. Can that Xingdao sect truly recruit a disciple? It will be another defective-born, mark my words. I always said Xingdao does not deserve its place among the 12. We should be the ones to take the mantle. Indeed, a house full of weaklings. Far above, at an altitude of 1,000 zhang, Li Chuyi was buffeted by winds so fierce his face distorted, a wave of vertigo washed his belly, and he felt the urgent need to vomit. Sword, Elder Jin slowed down. They stood upon a rust-streaked broken sword thrusting through the sky, as Li Chuyi watched the ground churn and warp beneath them. The speed felt 100 times faster than when he had ever awakened his Kunpeng form. Elder Jin only laughed and unfurled a protective spell veil, which eased Li Chuyi's discomfort substantially. Boy, we cannot be slow. The eastern cultivation world is vast as drifting mist. At our ordinary pace, it would take days to reach the mountain. Elder Jin said with a wry tone. He drew a talisman, and with a few flicks of his fingers the paper transformed into a wisp of green smoke that vanished into the air. Li Chuyi watched puzzled. Elder Jin, what are you doing? Chuyi, let the old man keep a secret for now. You will understand when we return to the mountain. Elder Jin smiled in a somewhat roguish way, waved his palm, and declared triple acceleration. In an instant, the broken sword cleaved the heavens and blurred into a mere afterimage before vanishing. Li Chuyi did not know where the Xingdao sect lay, but as Elder Jin cried out 10-fold speed, 50-fold speed, 100-fold speed, over and over, he finally came to understand what it meant to wish for death rather than life. All the while, the old man kept taunting him that his spiritual power might be passable, but his flesh was weak and could not endure such velocity. Li Chuyi resolved then and there that he would cultivate a supreme method of body refinement. Elder Jian, how much longer? Li Chuyi lay on the broken sword, his spirit waning. They had flown for 2 whole days and nights, crossing the domains of countless dynasties. Chuyi, we are nearly there. Elder Jian replied with a smile that smoothed the wrinkles in his face. The broken sword slowed and began a gentle descent. Li Chuyi peered downward. Beneath them rose a great mountain shrouded in mist. At its midsection, the summit split into a central peak flanked by 2 side peaks, giving it an unmistakably immortal mien. The mountain occupied roughly 50 li, ringed on all sides by water and crisscrossed by 2 great rivers, with a few scattered fishing boats upon them. This was Xingdao Mountain, the gate of the Xingdao sect. Xingdao Mountain sat to the south of the Linjiang Kingdom, and Linjiang itself lay in the southeast of the eastern cultivation world, a nation of the smallest sort. Yet that unassuming country stretched nearly 10,000 li from north to south. Linjiang was the sole kingdom under the Xingdao sect's influence. Its land was crisscrossed by great rivers and haunted by water spirits, with few plains and scarce mineral deposits. As for spiritstone veins, there were none at all. At last the 2 touched ground, and the sensation of solid earth beneath his feet brought Li Chuyi to tears of quiet relief. He vowed to temper his body without delay. Chuyi, come up the mountain with me. They'll also acquaint you with the surroundings. Elder Jian said, leaning on his iron crutch as he began the climb. Li Chuyi could only stagger after him. Within Xingdao Mountain, winding paths and murmuring streams led through secluded hollows, the landscape suffused with an air of serene transcendence. Halfway up, they came upon a swath of golden spiritual rice paddies. A breeze ran through them, and the sunlight poured into waving sheets of amber. Li Chuyi felt a smile well in his eyes. He had been a skilled farmer in his village, and the sight stirred an involuntary fondness. Spiritual rice absorbs heaven and earth's spiritual energy as it grows, and contains few impurities. For mortals, it prolongs life when eaten habitually, and for cultivators, it nourishes the body and enhances internal spiritual workings. But such seasonal growths could not compete with spirit stones forged underground over countless millennia. In the great sects, spiritual rice was merely food for lowly duty disciples or for kaya-finding cultivators to aid their practice. Even worldly nobles, if relationship and coin permitted, could procure a taste. Suddenly 2 slender figures emerged from the paddies, each carrying a small hoe. Both girls wore simple white hemp garments. Noticing unfamiliar men at the field's edge, their faces flushed crimson and their fingers clutched at their hems, evidently embarrassed and unsure how to behave. Blind girl, mute girl, what are you doing in the fields? The junior brother has returned to the mountain. Elder Jian tapped his iron crutch and called to them across the paddies. Upon hearing that the junior brother had come back, the two girls grew even redder in the face, yet they kept their heads bowed and slowly stepped out of the field toward the lane beside the spiritual patties. Chi junior brother Elder Jian sent word to the sect 2 days ago. We did not expect you back so soon. Are you hungry? Thirsty? One girl stammered, her features plain and unadorned, her eyes clouded and white as she kept her head lowered and her ears aflame. The other girl hung back shy and inhibited. She took the blind girl's hand and began to write upon its palm with careful tentative strokes. Elder Jian explained softly to Li Chuyi, these two are your senior sisters. One was born blind and the other mute. Both suffered much in the secular world before they were taken in by the Xingdao sect. Their conditions are not the same as ordinary deafness or muteness. They are congenitally missing a certain aperture. Whether they will recover in time is uncertain. Our sect is filled with the old, the weak, the sick, and the disabled. There is no scorn here. For them to feel shy around someone whole and well like you is only natural. Elder Jian looked upon the two girls with evident pity and, seeing their awkwardness, quickly conveyed the explanation to Li Chuyi through a low transmission of sound. Li Chuyi sighed silently upon realizing the situation. Since the senior sisters were so reserved, he, as the newly initiated junior brother, must step up. In an instant he transformed into a sunny and cheerful young man, then cupped his hands in greeting to the two women, his voice warm and gentle. Senior sisters, I am indeed hungry and thirsty. May I ask if there is any food available? Seeing Li Chuyi this way, the two women felt even more bashful. However, they immediately took out their storage bags and each retrieved a box of pastries and a jar of plum wine. Junior brother, here you go. The two women carefully handed them over. Li Chuyi smiled as he accepted them. He first took a sip of the plum wine, which seemed to contain some kind of spiritual herb. It tasted refreshingly tangy and cool, instantly dissipating the discomfort brought by the sword's aftermath. This whetted his appetite, and he hurriedly picked up a pastry to eat, which also contained spiritual herbs and had a fragrant aroma. The wine is delicious and the pastries are tasty as well. Li Chuyi's cheeks puffed out like a hamster, yet he did not forget to sweetly compliment them. Seeing that the junior brother enjoyed what they offered, the two women finally relaxed. Let's head up the mountain. Just remember, junior brother, don't forget this old man, the old sword master said in a melancholic tone. Thus the two women lowered their heads even more. As they ascended the mountain, the scenery grew ever more enchanting. The mountains were adorned with flowing willow flowers, their petals as white as snow. Senior sisters, are these numerous willow trees naturally grown, or were they planted by someone? Li Chuyi asked curiously. However, as soon as he posed the question, a hint of sadness flickered in the eyes of the two women, and even the old sword master sighed 3 times. Junior brother, these flowers were planted by the eldest senior sister, the blind woman replied. Li Chuyi nodded, but took note of their unusual expressions. Upon reaching the summit of the main peak, they found a palace-like structure that appeared ancient and elegant, yet it was completely empty inside. The old sword master led Li Chuyi into one of the great halls where enormous stone tablets stood covered with dense inscriptions of names. At that moment, the two arrived at a stone tablet. At the top it was inscribed, disciple of the 132nd generation of the Xingdao sect. Then the old sword master used his fingers like a sword and carved the name Li Chuyi onto it. Before his name there were additional inscriptions: hunchbacked woman, simpleton, three-handed blind woman, mute woman, ugly man. Chuyi, you are now officially the 132nd generation disciple of the Xingdao sect. The old sword master's tone was filled with a sense of nostalgia. Old sword master, does that mean there are only 7 of us in this generation of disciples? On their way, Li Chuyi had learned that the Xingdao sect ranked its disciples not by cultivation level, but by a century. 30 years had passed in this generation, yet it seemed there were only 7 of them. The old sword master nodded, his eyes reminiscent of ancient ice. In this past century, the Xingdao sect has struggled to recruit new disciples. When I ventured into the mundane world, I found not even a single person with the 5 elements spiritual root. It feels as if someone is deliberately targeting the Xingdao sect. After exiting the great hall, the two women were still waiting outside. The old sword master casually cast a spell. They transformed into a streak of light and traveled from the main peak of Xingdao Mountain to the eastern peak. At the peak here, the area was spacious. Looking down, one could see the breathtaking scenery of the mountains. Even the great river at the base was clearly visible. Not far away, 3 individuals were busy hammering away at a building. Li Chuyi looked over and saw that the building was brand new, meticulously crafted. Upon seeing someone approach, the 3 immediately set down their work and rushed over. Their eyes shone with joy, yet they seemed unsure of where to place their hands, appearing somewhat nervous. Li Chuyi recognized them as his senior brothers. He couldn't help it, they were too distinctive. One of them had a handsome face, but had an extra hand protruding from his abdomen. He was currently trying hard to hide that extra hand beneath his clothing, not wanting Li Chuyi to notice anything unusual. When ascending the mountain, the old sword master had mentioned that this 3-handed senior brother had an extra hand connected to his dantian, which should not be moved lightly. The other was a bald man with deep grooves on his face resembling centipedes, exceedingly ugly. He buried his head low, afraid to look at Li Chuyi. The last one was a burly man wearing a silly grin, clearly a simpleton. Li Chuyi knew that his senior brothers had faced various ridicule and humiliation due to their physical oddities since childhood, making him quite sensitive. Thus he tried to widen his smile, making it appear more friendly. Chuyi greets the three-handed senior brother, the ugly man senior brother, and the simpleton senior brother. Li Chuyi bowed sincerely. Upon seeing that Li Chuyi showed no disdain for their appearances, and even called them senior brothers, the three of them instantly became happy, their eyes and brows brimming with uncontainable joy. Junior brother, come take a look. This is the pavilion we built for you. It will be your cultivation place from now on. After the three-handed man spoke, he wanted to pull Li Chuyi's sleeve, but as soon as his hand reached out, he quickly withdrew it. Chuyi, go check it out. Your senior brothers are quite skilled in woodworking. I previously used talismans to send them messages just so they could build a wooden house for you, which will be your home in the Xianxia sect from now on. The old sword master watched the interaction among them with a look of satisfaction and casually remarked. Li Chuyi slightly nodded, placing his hands on the shoulders of the three-handed man and the ugly man, appearing quite chummy. Senior brothers, let's go check out the house you built for me. It's the first time in my life that someone has built a house for me, and I'm truly touched. Also, simpleton senior brother, why are you so strong and tall? You're even taller than me. I truly envy. The group arrived at the pavilion at the mountain's edge. The wooden structure had 3 stories, and every part was meticulously carved, exuding an ancient charm. Additionally, there was a faint fluctuation of spiritual energy above it, indicating that small formations had been set up for dust removal and pest control. I love it. I love it so much. Thank you, my 3 senior brothers. Li Chuyi beamed with delight, genuinely appreciating it. Oh, three-handed senior brother, wasn't there another wooden building next to this one? Why was it taken down? Noticing the unfinished remnants, he felt puzzled. However, the three-handed man and the others averted their gazes, even the mute and blind women lowered their heads. At that moment, the old sword master's voice echoed in his mind. Chuyi, don't ask. The previously standing wooden building was where your 3 senior brothers lived. They knew you were coming and thought this location was good, so they rebuilt a house next to it for you. The reason they tore down their own house is probably that they felt odd about their appearances and didn't want to live too close to you, fearing it might upset you. Li Chuyi suddenly fell silent, feeling inexplicably melancholic. Despite enduring the world's torment since childhood, they still considered others' feelings. Yet the Xianxia sect was indeed the right place to come to, lacking resources mattered not. With these senior brothers and sisters alone, it was hard for him not to feel affection. In the evening, on the peak of the eastern side of the Xianxia mountain, Li Chuyi faced the evening breeze, gazing at the flickering fishing lights below, feeling inexplicably emotional. Junior brother Chuyi, came a soft voice from below. The blind girl said, the meal is ready, come down. Come. This was a welcome feast prepared for him by several senior brothers and sisters, while also taking care of him since he had not established his foundation yet and could not fast. A large wooden table was set in the open space in front of the attic where everyone gathered to eat and drink. The table was filled with spiritual rice and various dishes cooked with spiritual herbs. Following the old custom, Li Chuyi placed an extra set of chopsticks and a bowl beside him, taking a bit of every dish. No one asked him why. After all, for cultivators, having peculiar habits was quite normal. There was an extra person at the table, an old blacksmith with both arms severed, who was also an elder of the Xianxia sect, referred to as Old Tai by everyone. Old sword, I have been at the Xianxia sect for quite some time, yet I haven't seen any other people. Li Chuyi asked, chewing on the spiritual rice and puffing his cheeks. Tisk young Chuyi, our Xianxia sect currently has 128 members, with 2 in the transformation stage, 36 in the nascent soul stage, 64 in the golden core stage, and 5 in foundation establishment, while you are just a little chi refining cultivator. On the other side, old sword took a sip of wine, feeling a bit smug. His 2 in the transformation stage and 36 in the nascent soul stage. This. Li Chuyi gasped, his voice elongated. In the nascent soul stage, even if the physical body is destroyed, one can still be reborn through possession, and as for the transformation stage, that is considered a formidable power. Old sword, what about these seniors? Li Chuyi was now quite curious. With the lineup of the Xianxia sect, how could it be so desolate? They have gone to practice the Dao. This Xianxia mountain only has 128 disciples, and the 2 of us as mountain guardians. When Old Sword said this, he seemed both lonely and helpless, yet there was also a sense of pride. Practicing the Dao. Li Chuyi silently repeated these 2 words, feeling they held a special meaning. So, Old Sword, does our Xianxia sect have such a high ratio of cultivators reaching the golden core and nascent soul stages? Li Chuyi knew that the success rate for cultivators advancing was extremely low. Hi. Haha, young Chuyi, do you know that golden cores live for 1,000 years and nascent souls for 5,000? That's the result of a 1,000-year and 5,000-year accumulation. Moreover, our Xianxia sect can rank among the 12 immortal sects, and that is backed by some resources you will know tomorrow. Alas, it's a pity that our Xingdao sect hasn't been able to recruit disciples in the past 100 years. After Old Sword finished speaking, he took a hefty swig of wine, as if only in the wine could he express his emotions. Young Qi, tomorrow, I will teach you the way of blacksmithing. At that moment, the previously silent Elder Tai spoke up. Your magical power is substantial, but it is used too roughly. Forging iron. Li Chuyi's eyes widened. Old Tai, what does forging iron have to do with the use of magical power? Old Tai smiled and replied, you will know when you can wield a 1,000-pound hammer using only the slightest amount of magical power for hundreds of times. Speaking of forging iron, Li Chuyi remembered that he wanted to forge a good blade for himself. This was just the right opportunity. Instantly his eyes lit up and he nodded eagerly. At this moment, Li Chuyi noticed that the 3 hands of the mute girl and her companions sat quietly without touching the food on the table. Senior sisters and brothers, you should also drink and eat. Seeing that they were still a bit reserved, he decided to take on the role of a social butterfly at the table. Senior brothers, do you know that in my hometown, there is a remarkable person who spent 2.5 years creating a unique Koan fist, never losing a single match, astonishing an entire era. Senior sister, and also, following this, Li Chuyi entertained everyone, gradually lightening the atmosphere. Everyone was somewhat tipsy, but no one used magical power to sober up. Sister Mute, what are you writing in the palm of blind sister's hand? Li Chuyi looked at this scene feeling a bit curious. However, upon hearing his question, the mute girl's face turned bright, red, almost bleeding. Junior brother Chuyi, Sister Mute, said you are wearing a plain moon-white robe, and when you smile your eyes curve beautifully, looking very handsome. Beside her, the blind girl directly revealed the mute girl's secret. In response, Li Chuyi couldn't help but chuckle. These senior sisters were really adorable. By the way, senior brothers and sisters, I have a gift to present. Young Chuyi, what are you dawdling about? Quickly take out what you have in your arms. Before Li Chuyi could finish, he was interrupted by Old Sword tapping him with his iron crutch. Seeing this, Li Chuyi had no choice but to take out a small package from his bosom and lay it out on the table. Inside were storage rings and bracelets of various styles. Then he boldly declared, senior sisters and brothers, hurry and choose. If you don't fill your fingers today, no one is allowed to go back. He had noticed that the 3 hands of the mute girl and her companions were still using storage bags and cherished them greatly. As for why he carried so many storage rings with him, let's just say that as a child of the Heavenly Dao, he feared having too many opportunities that he could not hold, that was all. However, when he displayed the storage rings, the mute girl and her companions clearly seemed a bit restless, unsure of what to do. At this moment, Old Sword spoke again. You silly kids, hurry and choose. Don't be polite with young Chuyi, you have no idea. On the mountain path, this kid kept saying he felt like throwing up, then he wanted to rest, and every time he stopped, he casually sat on the grave of a cultivator who had perished. Or he would accidentally step down and discover a legacy of cultivation. Those who didn't know would think he was the favored child of the Heavenly Dao. Watching Old Sword act like a rich man, Li Chuyi couldn't help but think back to when they first started their return to the mountain. It had only been a 3-fold speed increase. Could it be that Old Sword felt he was too lucky, and out of an imbalance in his heart, he deliberately set the speed to 50 times, or even 100 times to mess with him? The more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed, yet he still smiled cheerfully. Senior sisters and brothers, Old Sword is right, and my luck is indeed a little bit better. If you don't choose, I will help you choose. He then stuffed 10 storage rings into each person's hands, saying that if their fingers weren't filled, they would have to keep their word. The next day morning, as the dawn light began to break, the Old Sword Master led Li Chuyi to the summit of Xingdao Mountain, then entered one of the grand halls. Inside the hall, it was spacious, with only a strange wall that was neither gold nor jade. Chuyi, do you know why our Xingdao sect has no inherited techniques, yet still ranks among the 12 immortal sects? The Old Sword Master looked at the strange wall, his tone solemn. Please enlighten me, Old Sword. Chuyi, this matter is significant. I need to plant a restriction in your mind, which is also a necessity for every disciple of the Xingdao sect. Do you understand? Hearing this, Li Chuyi thought nothing of it. Instead, he felt that such mystique meant the upcoming event would surely be. I am willing, he replied. The Old Sword Master nodded, then began to chant while forming a hand seal. 5 stars suppress color, illuminate the mysterious underworld. Mighty beasts of the great heaven, subdue the 5 armies. 5 heavenly demons, annihilate forms. A colorful net of light appeared out of thin air and instantly drilled into Li Chuyi's mind. He felt no discomfort. Instead, his head felt cool and comfortable, wanting the Old Sword Master to do it again. Chuyi, you must listen carefully to what I tell you next. The Old Sword Master's expression turned serious. Seeing this, Li Chuyi also became solemn. Chuyi, do you know that there are wondrous treasures in the world born from heaven and earth that can transform decay into the miraculous? Old Sword, are you saying this wall is one of those wondrous treasures? Li Chuyi scrutinized the wall again, feeling increasingly that his mind was being drawn into it. Indeed, it is called the Great Thousand Codex, and it is the true foundation of the Xingdao sect. The Great Thousand Codex records the glimmer of enlightenment from all the extraordinary beings in a world. Chuyi, do you know what the glimmer of enlightenment is? Li Chuyi paused, then his eyes flickered as he ventured. It should be some kind of discovery or insight, perhaps. The old sword master nodded slowly. To be specific, the glimmer of enlightenment refers to the unique techniques created by those who astonish the heavens or their distinct understanding of all things and principles. At the moment these glimmers arise, they are captured and recorded by the Great Thousand Codex. Chuyi, do you understand now? At this moment, Li Chuyi was stunned, his eyes betraying a profound shock. If what the old sword master said was true, then this Great Thousand Codex was far more impressive than the efforts of digging up the graves of predecessors. He mumbled, "Old sword, does the Great Thousand Codex really record all the powerful techniques in the world? Who knows? The origins of the Great Thousand Codex are not recorded by the Xingdao sect. This is just the tale passed down through generations." The old sword master's eyes seemed filled with reminiscence, recalling how many years ago he had first stood before this wall and asked the same question. Chuyi, you will have a quarter of an hour to enter the Great Thousand Codex with your divine sense. During this time, you must find the glimmer of enlightenment that resonates with you the most. Then merge your divine sense into it. If it is a technique, you will witness how it was born from a first-person perspective, which will greatly enhance your understanding of that technique. But Chuyi, remember, each person can only enter the Great Thousand Codex once, and only for a quarter of an hour. Do not be greedy. Finding what suits you is the most important, for if you exceed a quarter of an hour, your divine sense will never escape. The old sword master's tone and demeanor were very serious, and Li Chuyi naturally understood the importance of this matter. Understood, old sword. What must I do next? Simply place your hand on the Great Thousand Codex. Li Chuyi nodded slowly, then walked up to the wall and took a deep breath before gently placing his hand on it. The touch felt warm, yet an odd sensation surged into his mind, nearly causing him to faint. When his divine sense cleared again, he found himself in a strange space. This space was unfathomable. It seemed chaotic yet full of order, as if it transcended past and future. Streams of bizarre and varied light flickered chaotically within this space. As soon as Li Chuyi entered this codex space, all the streams rushed towards him, with even more pouring in from the depths of the space. Each stream carried a different aura, some akin to the thunder and fire of the nine heavens, others reminiscent of ancient ice, and some even faintly revealing principles. Outside the codex space, Li Chuyi's physical body was also enveloped in a swirling light of various colors, profoundly mysterious. Beside him, the old sword master stared blankly, murmuring, This defies the common principles of cultivation. Tisk tisk, these must be the glimmers of enlightenment. Can I choose more than one? But what if time runs out? Inside the codex space, Li Chuyi pinched his chin, showing a troubled expression. Never mind, I am never short of techniques. I will simply choose as I please from those who have gone before. Saying this, Li Chuyi casually grasped a stream of light. In an instant, a sharp cutting sensation surged through his hand, causing even his soul to ache. Frowning, he gritted his teeth, enduring the intense pain as he submerged his divine sense within. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a desolate, barren, and lifeless world of yellow sand. In this world, a being 10 zhang tall, radiating a silvery metallic sheen, was walking alone through the... It had 3 pairs of menacing blade-like wings on its back. Its legs and arms were all made of blades, and even the muscles of its body made a clashing sound as they moved. Wherever it passed, a void followed behind. What is this life? At this moment, Li Chuyi felt his soul tremble as he was viewing everything from a first-person perspective. Or rather, as if he were a dual-soul entity, he felt like an outsider possessing this life. Year after year, this being walked alone in the world of yellow sand, until one day its aura began to surge wildly. Its body transformed from a white gold color to pure gold. This seemed to happen in an instant, yet felt like an eternity. Li Chuyi could only remember that in the final moment the entire world disintegrated as that being opened its eyes. Inside the codex space, Li Chuyi slowly opened his eyes, a glimmer of golden light flashing across them. Tisk tisk, the Benito gold technique, what a marvelous treasure. His lips involuntarily curved up slightly. This was a foundational technique that could directly cultivate to the great completion stage with an unparalleled sharpness of the cultivated power, while also embodying the intent to cut through all things. Furthermore, this technique also had physical training effects capable of honing the entire body's internal organs, transforming bones into blades and skin into gold. Impressive, he exclaimed excitedly, but then doubts crept in. But what was that metallic being? Was it also from this world? Why have I never heard of it? However, to create such a technique is indeed extraordinary. At this moment, he looked at the streams of light swirling around him, wanting to choose yet another. But he felt a subtle repelling force attempting to drive him away. Li Chuyi understood that time was running out. If he didn't leave soon, he would be trapped here forever. Suddenly his spirit surged wildly. A stream of light floated into his hand, delicate and faint, appearing so dim in this space. As the repelling force intensified, Li Chuyi desperately tried to shake it off. Just then his divine sense was violently pulled into it. When Li Chuyi opened his eyes again, he was astonished to find that he had become immortal, or rather he had taken over the body of a mortal. There was no fluctuation of magical power within him, and he couldn't sense even a trace of spiritual energy. Cui Shishan, do you know what it means for mortals to be like ants? I spare your life today, make good use of it. On the ground, Cui Shishan was trampled underfoot, lying in a pool of blood, his body riddled with wounds and bubbles of blood frothing from his mouth. In front of the pool of blood, several men with swords wore expressions as cold as ice, looking down on him haughtily, as if gazing at a dead dog. Let's go, we view mortals as pigs and dogs, why waste time on him? Having said that, the group flew away on their swords like a long rainbow. Li Chuyi silently watched all of this, unsure of what had happened, only knowing that the young man named Cui Shishan was indeed in a tragic state. Distant thunder rumbled from the clouds, and silver snakes of lightning streaked across the sky, as if tearing apart the endless canopy, with torrential rain pouring down. The rain flowed across the ground, washing away the bright red blood, mixing it with the mud. Cui Zishan's choking, unwilling, and roaring sounds were barely audible amidst the chaotic sound of rain. The rain intensified, bringing waves of coldness. Suddenly, Cui Shishan propped himself up on his arm, laughing sinisterly in the torrential wind and rain. Accompanied by the lightning that streaked across the sky, it seemed to compose a prelude named madness. Half a year passed, and Cui Zishan's injuries healed significantly. When he reappeared before others, he seemed like a changed person. Dressed in white, exuding an air of nobility, warm as jade, he always wore a smile, treating everyone as if they were greeted by a spring breeze. At that time, the mortal kingdom he belonged to was in the midst of a grand era. The 10 kingdoms waged mutual wars, each family and sect vying for supremacy, scholars challenging each other, creating a scene of unprecedented prosperity. Thus Cui Shishan went to study, visiting various schools of thought. However, these schools did not welcome a youth unwilling to be an apprentice, repeatedly driving him away. But Cui Shishan did not get angry. He remained humble and courteous. If one attempt failed, he would try 100 times, and gradually the schools set aside their prejudices, allowing him to read through all the collections. As he read more and more, Cui Zishan's knowledge grew deeper. Dressed in white, as pure as snow, he captured the hearts of countless young women, leaving many scholars in despair. And just like that, 20 years passed. Cui Shishan grew a black beard resembling a middle-aged scholar. During this time, Li Chuyi accompanied him in reading for 20 years. Originally, his anxious heart, eager to explore the great world, had also quieted down. Slowly, during his pursuit of knowledge, Cui Shishan noticed the heavy hearts of the people in the world. He saw how, under the harm of some unscrupulous cultivators and the ongoing wars among the 10 kingdoms, the common folk were struggling to survive. Cui Shishan decided to take action. One day, he went to Huai Kingdom, which was then just a small vassal state. The young emperor greeted him with great excitement, and he became the national teacher of this small kingdom. At this point, the chessboard was already set, and the world awaited the national teacher's move. Forming alliances and breaking them, driving wolves and tigers away, adept in warfare and governance. In just 10 years, with the strength of a small nation, he subdued the 4 corners and unified the 10 kingdoms. Dressed in white, he became world-renowned. That year, Cui Shishan turned 50. Amidst the cheers of the entire nation, he quietly departed. Afterward, he came to a village, becoming a teacher, instructing a group of young children in reading and writing while imparting to them the principles of his heart. In his spare time, he began reading again, relishing both the books he had previously read and those he had not. In the blink of an eye, another 20 years had passed. Cui Shishan was now 70 years old, his hair and beard completely white, yet his eyes showed no sign of murkiness, instead becoming even clearer. He left that straw hut, but the students he taught inherited the career he had left behind, dedicating themselves to the country and the people. Cui Shishan began to travel the world, measuring every inch of land beneath his feet with his own 2 legs. During this time, he witnessed countless joys and sorrows, life and death. At times he wept, at times he laughed, sometimes quarreling with children in bustling markets, and at other times gazing at the vast starry skies in the wilderness. This journey lasted another decade. Cui Shishan turned 80, and while mortals at 80 understand their destiny, he, on the other hand, was even more spirited. And through it all, Li Chuyi silently witnessed everything. On this day, it was autumn, with a gentle breeze and light clouds, and before his eyes the mountains were ablaze with red leaves. In a small thatched hut, Cui Shishan had set up a table outside early, placing ink brushes, paper, and inkstone upon it. Amidst the autumn wind and falling leaves, he began to write. I come from a family of farmers. When I was born, there were no signs in the sky. My parents had a limited education, with a few humble rooms in our cold house. Fortunately, I could cultivate a small field for sustenance, enabling me to survive. My mother's love and father's kindness living carefree, yet I could curl up in this vast world and still be happy. I also had an unmarried fiancée, though she is not of extraordinary beauty. We have known each other since childhood. Over time this can be considered a happy union. But can everything go as one wishes? In this world there exists a type of person known as cultivators. At this moment Cui Xishan put down his pen, his eyes showing both sadness and a raging fury, the first time Li Chui had seen him like this since that stormy day. When Cui Xishan was the national teacher of Huai Kingdom, even when the enemy was at the city's gates, he remained calm in his white robe, holding the chess pieces. Gradually Cui Xishan's expression returned to calm, and he began to write again. That day 471 villagers, young and old, including my parents and wife, were obliterated by a single sword, their forms and souls scattered. I survived outside, but how can one merely survive? Moreover, I have countless grievances. In the 3 years that followed, I traversed the great mountains and rivers, ultimately encountering a cultivator. Alas, he said that one must possess spiritual roots to cultivate, while I can only remain immortal for a lifetime. With his help, I learned who the villains from 3 years ago were, the sword sect of a certain immortal gate. Finally, after enduring countless hardships, I found that immortal gate. Although I am a mere mortal, I only wish to ask those immortals, why is it so? Why must mortals live such cheap lives? Must we be crushed like ants? Later I learned the answer. In the eyes of those so-called immortals, mortals are indeed like pigs and dogs, just like myself. They can casually inflict grievous injuries with a wave of their hand, and as for killing me, they even feel it tarnishes their eyes. I wish to cultivate, but is it really impossible without spiritual roots? Since no one told me, I shall seek in the secular world. Reading, commanding troops, governing the world, educating people. Finally I found the answer. At this moment Cui Xishan had already stopped writing. The autumn wind ceased, yet his head of white hair and beard moved as if there was no wind, his eyes shining with resplendent brilliance. He gazed at the distant mountains covered in fallen leaves and slowly said, "My brother, although I do not know where you come from, you have silently accompanied me for over 60 years and Xishan is deeply grateful. Would you be willing to accompany me in slaughtering those false immortals?" As soon as he spoke, the once clear blue sky suddenly thundered with countless roars. At this moment a tempest stirred within Li Chuyi's heart lake. He had always believed he was merely witnessing these past events from a first-person perspective, but now it seemed he was actually witnessing these events unfold before his eyes. Is this the wondrous treasure of heaven and earth? It can transport me across time and space. Li Chuyi was momentarily stunned. But why did the metallic creature, the one capable of annihilating everything with a mere gaze, fail to notice him while Cui Xishan was aware? Wait, Cui Xishan said he would slay immortals, yet he was merely immortal. You know of my existence. Li Chuyi strained to activate his divine sense, which felt as though it were submerged in a mire. I know. In front of the thatched cottage, Cui Xishan was tidying up his writing materials. His hair and beard were completely white and his face was lined with the ravages of time, yet his eyes shone brightly. I am Li Chuyi. Brother Xishan, are you serious about what you just said? Outside, Cui Xishan finished tidying everything and placed it inside the cottage, gently closing the small wooden door before turning to gaze into the distance. He smiled slightly and said, "Brotherly, there are no falsehoods between us. There are no falsehoods between us." Li Chuyi pondered this statement. Indeed, for the past 60 years who Cui Xishan was, he could not possibly be unaware. With a single thought, a fierce wind arose and Cui Xishan's hair and beard were swept upwards. Vast dark clouds began to gather in the sky, and the distant rumble of thunder gradually grew, deafening, a terrifying pressure suddenly enveloping the earth. This is the nascent soul. Tribulation. Under this murderous intent, Li Chuyi stammered, his eyes wide in shock. In front of the thatched cottage, Cui Xishan was also unable to open his eyes because of the fierce winds. Suddenly a surge of energy wildly ascended within him, refining chi, establishing a foundation, forming a core, and achieving infancy. Immediately his white hair turned black and his withered body regained its luster. He astonishingly transformed back into the young man he was 60 years ago, gentle as a spring breeze. Heavenly tribulation disperse. As Cui Xishan spoke, the thunderclouds vanished. Li Chuyi witnessed it all, yet he could not comprehend why no spiritual energy from heaven and earth had entered Cui Xishan's body. Yet the whirlpool of spiritual energy within him was so surging and powerful. At this moment, as the thunderclouds dispersed, a beam of sunlight shone upon Cui Xishan. He rose from the ground, transforming into a long rainbow. "Brotherly, please follow me to slay the immortal." Above the Xianmen of Xingyang Mountain, Cui Xishan looked down at the scene below. The spiritual mountains were abundant with spiritual energy, hazily drifting clouds and mist swirling, and celestial cranes dancing with branches resembling a fairyland. He landed on an ancient path, and Li Chuyi immediately recognized the place. 60 years ago, Cui Xishan fell here amidst a storm of thunder and blood. Brotherly, I know you are curious as to why I, a mere mortal, cannot absorb any spiritual energy, yet possess such powers. Allow me to explain. Chui Shishan walked slowly along the mountain path, his expression calm, just as he had during his decades of travel. Spiritual energy resides in the heart, coming and going, vast, yet subtle, infinite, yet contained. Brotherly, spiritual energy is not limited to the heavens and earth. Every person possesses a trace of it in their hearts. This is the blessing of the heart, where spiritual energy circles, hence the blessing of the celestial. Blessing of the celestial. Then, Brother Shishan, are you now a mortal or an immortal? Li Chuyi's voice trembled slightly. He had never heard of, nor could he comprehend what kind of state this was. On the mountain path, Chui Shishan revealed a faint smile and said, Brotherly, I will always be human. After saying this, he soared into the air, his voice resonating like a great bell, instantly echoing throughout the heavens and earth. A mere mortal, Chui Shishan has come to visit Zhengyang Mountain today to send all of you immortals on your way to the afterlife. At this time, within the Zhengyang Xianmen, the onsen Adicade sect competition was in full swing. In the vast square, countless disciples of Zhengyang sect sat cross-legged, and magnificent battle platforms were erected everywhere, with a golden core elder standing in midair above each set of 3 platforms. Not far away on the observation platform, there were 13 figures seated, each exuding an aura as deep as the ocean. Such courage! The leader of them narrowed his eyes slightly, formed a hand seal, and instantly the entire mountain range where Zhengyang Mountain was located surged with spiritual energy, activating large formations that appeared like a cover over the sun. Fellow Taoist, having come from afar, it seems you will stay in Zhengyang Mountain today. After speaking, the 13 figures rose into the air, each standing atop a large formation. In the sky above the square, the air rippled, and Chui Zishan's figure slowly emerged. Looking at the countless figures below, he slowly said, I have come today only to seek justice for the 216,000 innocent citizens who have died in vain due to the conflicts among the disciples of Zhengyang sect over the past 60 years. As soon as these words were spoken, the square fell silent. After a while, the leader of Zhengyang sect curled his lips in a mocking smile, his eyes filled with ridicule. Fellow Taoist, we seek the path of immortality. Why should we care about the lives of those ants? Besides, they are like the countless snakes, insects, and ants on the mountain, impossible to eradicate, never-ending. After one batch dies, another will soon emerge. Fellow Taoist, you seem to be deluded. This path to immortality may well end here. The sect leader said this, looking at Chui Shishan, his killing intent already palpable. At this moment, among the 13 figures, a woman dressed in palace attire stepped forward, angrily shouting, Ignorant fool, your aura barely indicates you are a nascent soul, yet you dare to spout nonsense on Zhengyang Mountain. Truly unaware of your own mortality. In the high sky, malice pervades, distinguishing not between purity and filth, and yet you dare to call yourselves immortals. Chui Zishan's eyes were filled with icy coldness. Moreover, my purpose here is not to force you to admit your crimes, for I believe you are guilty, and that is enough. Suddenly a stir arose among the disciples of Zhengyang sect. A foundation establishment disciple emerged, his expression terrified, crawling frantically before the 13 figures. Master, esteemed ancestors, I have something to report. This man visited our Zhengyang Mountain 60 years ago. At that time, he was merely a mortal without spiritual roots. Now, however, he possesses extraordinary cultivation, and I suspect he has used some form of evil or sinister method. I implore all esteemed ancestors to eliminate this evil and guard the path. This statement instantly caused a panic among the countless disciples of Zhengyang sect. Li Chuyi also recognized that foundation establishment disciple who had indeed been the one to trample Chui Shishan in a pool of blood 60 years ago. No spiritual roots. 60 years ago, he was still a mere mortal. He must be akin to an evil spirit. The leader of Zhengyang sect said, his face grave. I implore all fellow brothers to slay the evil. He did not dare to be careless, for he had never seen or heard of a mortal being able to wield the power of immortals. Instantly, the great formation was activated, an array of lights flickering, and countless attacks rushed towards Chui Shishan. Brother Shishan. At this moment, Li Chuyi's mind trembled violently. No worries. Chui Shishan coldly snorted, taking out a brush and lightly tapping the air a few times. In an instant, the previously menacing formations shattered with a resounding crash, like ice crystals breaking, scattering across the heavens and earth. 2 figures shot up from the ground, casting a cold glance at Chui Shishan before standing opposed to him from afar. Their postures were high and mighty, exuding a chilling and ruthless aura of slaughter. Master, the 2 ancestors have emerged from their seclusion. The leader of Zhengyang sect was exceptionally agitated, as Chui Zishan's swift annihilation of all formations was truly terrifying. Please, ancestors, slay the demon and restore the clear skies of Zhengyang. At this moment, all disciples of Zhengyang Mountain knelt on one knee, gazing up at the 2 newly appeared elders. No matter those who dare disturb our tranquility shall suffer eternal damnation, including their kin, who shall not be spared. In the sky, both ancestors of Xianxia Mountain wore gloomy expressions, their power surging. Evil brat, do you wish for us to take action, or will you submit willingly? On the other side, Xishan brother, how do we solve this? At this moment, Li Chuyi increasingly felt his divine sense becoming obscure and stagnant. Brotherly, no worries, it's just a peak transformation realm cultivator. Once I start this blessing of ascending to immortality, there will be no stopping it. Cui Xishan showed no surprise or joy in his eyes, only his aura surged once more. Mid-stage nascent soul, late-stage perfection breaking through into transformation realm, and his aura continued to rise. As before, there was no spiritual energy being infused into Cui Zishan's body, yet his internal power was climbing steadily. In an instant, a bolt of lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating the world, followed by countless thunderclouds gathering, with innumerable purple arcs of electricity dancing in the air. The world was vast and desolate. At this moment, even cultivators felt as insignificant as ants beneath the overwhelming force of nature. The fourth heavenly tribulation of transformation realm had arrived. The tribulation was still gathering strength, but the torrential rain had already begun to fall, transforming the entire world into a white haze reminiscent of that day 60 years ago. Cui Zishan's aura continued to rise, reaching mid-stage transformation realm, then late stage. At this moment, his long black hair was drenched by the raindrops, cascading wildly like a madman. No need for spiritual energy, yet I can continuously break through. This demon truly is a demon. This scene caused all the people of Xianxia Mountain to tremble uncontrollably. Disciples of Xianxia, listen. This demon is surely an anomaly of the heavens. Now that two ancestors are present with the heavenly thunder tribulation descending, he cannot escape. All disciples re-established the sect's great formation to protect Xianxia Mountain. The leader of Xianxia Mountain, suppressing his fear, issued the command, and the disciples steadied their minds, beginning to channel their power to reactivate the protective formation. In Cui Zishan's eyes, as his realm continuously ascended, Xianxia Mountain no longer held the aura of an immortal abode. Instead, a malevolent energy surged forth, with all disciples, elders, the leader, and even the two peak transformation realm ancestors surrounded by a miasma of blood and slaughter. In the sky, the thunder of the tribulation grew ever fiercer, lightning striking down intermittently. At this moment, Cui Xishan moved, and the hatred he had suppressed for 60 years erupted completely. Within the curtain of rain, he was seen with his white garments fluttering, the tip of his brush emanating a soul-stirring mystical light. As Cui Xishan lightly tapped with his brush, a strange and sharp energy surged forth from its tip. Demon, how dare you use demonic arts to harm others? The two transformation realm cultivators across from him were instantly filled with rage. They unleashed their power, transforming into two massive hands that pressed down towards Cui Xishan. However, just as those powerful hands formed, they instantly dissipated into vast spiritual energy. Suddenly, numerous wails echoed across the heavens and earth. Ancestor, save me. The two turned back, only to see the leader of Xianxia Mountain and 12 other nascent soul cultivators turned into a pile of bloody meat. Only a few glowing nascent soul figures remained frantically running around in the air. Some of these nascent souls even directly possessed their talented disciples, attempting to seize their bodies. The rain and thunder grew ever stronger. In the sky, Cui Xishan appeared both joyful and sorrowful, finally releasing emotions that had been suppressed for so long. His aura continued to rise, swiftly reaching the peak of transformation realm. Watching the nascent souls attempting to seize bodies, he flicked his brush and several figures in the square exploded, turning those nascent souls to ash. Ha, the immortals disregard the common folk, standing high above. Why do they fall? Cui Xishan laughed uproariously. Demon, may you die a wretched death. The two transformation realm cultivators were now bloodshot, directly summoning their life treasures. Meanwhile, Cui Zishan's cultivation was escalating at an alarming pace, swiftly breaking through to the void refinement stage. At the moment he broke through, the overwhelming wave of power caused the entire world to fall silent. Even the impending thunder tribulation paused for a moment as a potent and destructive aura began to envelop the entire sky. The 6-9 heavenly tribulation. The two transformation realm ancestors' throats rolled incessantly. At this moment, upon witnessing Cui Zishan's breakthrough to the void refinement stage, they no longer had the heart to fight. They exchanged glances and then cupped their hands towards Cui Xishan. Fellow Taoist, you may safely undergo your tribulation. Xianxia Mountain will not strike you while you are down, and in return, all grievances between us will be settled. What do you say? In an instant, their expressions became amiable, a stark contrast to their previous demeanor. Behind the scenes, however, their divine senses continued to communicate. Should Cui Xishan show any signs of weakness during the tribulation, they would decisively strike him down. Chui Zishan's gaze revealed a hint of mockery. If such people with such tricks dared to claim themselves as superior. His aura continued to rise, reaching mid-stage void refinement, then late stage and perfection. Enough of your nonsense. I weep for the injustices of the world. My heart resonates with the word immortal, how cold and unfeeling it is. Since you label me a demon, let this demon bring an end to you celestial beings. Chui Zishan's words rang out, clearly overshadowing the thunderous roars and the rain. He revealed a fierce expression, pressing the tip of his brush fiercely downwards. A hazy light burst forth from beneath the brush, exploding into countless star-like threads of light, scattering everywhere. Fellow Taoist everything. Ancestors save me. Below, all disciples of Xianxia sect, including the 2 transformation realm ancestors, had their pupils widen, reflecting the scene of the starry rain. But in an instant they were reduced to powder under that astonishing beauty, their forms and spirits annihilated. From this moment on, Xianxia Mountain would vanish without a trace. In the sky, Chui Zishan finally let out a breath, appearing relaxed, yet his cultivation continued to soar. Zishan brother, you. What is this? In Li Chuyi's eyes, Chui Zishan's aura was rapidly rising, yet his figure was slowly becoming ethereal. Brotherly, no worries. Chui Zishan smiled lightly, appearing calm. Brotherly, I have said before, this blessing of ascending to immortality cannot be halted once it begins, and mere mortals cannot truly bear such fortune. Thus an immortal's blessing is like that of a mayfly, fleeting and ephemeral. Hearing this, Li Chuyi appeared somewhat dazed, slowly asking, Zishan brother, is there truly no way? Chui Zishan smiled and shook his head, showing a hint of helplessness. But brotherly, I must thank you once again. After so many years and so many books, it would be exhausting for me to read them all alone. So brotherly, I offer this mortal heart to you. I believe it will be of great use to you. At this moment, Chui Zishan's tone carried gratitude and relief. Zishan. Before Li Chuyi could react, he felt something merging into his heart. Then the world spun around. At this moment, Li Chuyi's divine sense returned to the illustrated space, while the repulsive force had grown to its utmost intensity. If he had delayed returning even a little longer, he would have been unable to escape once that force dissipated. Thus, he completely relaxed his mind and opened his eyes once more, his divine sense having returned to his. In the grand hall, the old sword master breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing Li Chuyi finally emerge. Countless individuals throughout the history of the Xingdao sect had been lost to such experiences, only to end up as mere piles of bones. Old sword, it's been a long time. Li Chuyi's lips moved slightly, his tone carrying the weight of time's passage. The old sword master was momentarily taken aback, but quickly recalled that they used to be the same, even though they had only been inside for less than 15 minutes. However, it felt as if his divine sense had lingered there for several days, or even a month. This made him sigh inwardly, thinking the young man truly has not seen such grand formations before. Ahem, Chi, how was this experience? I once obtained the transformation technique inside, and the seniors praised me for having the potential for transformation. The old sword master cleared his throat, a hint of pride on his face as he asked in a tone befitting one who had been through it all. Li Chuyi, however, raised his eyebrows, slightly a peculiar look in his eyes. Old sword, you know, I have always been lucky. Returning to the small building on the western peak, the sky had just begun to brighten. At this moment, Li Chuyi stood by the third-floor window, gazing down at the mountains. The entire scenery of Xingdao Mountain unfolded before him, the morning wind stirring the wisteria-filled mountains, the flowers, as white as jade, resembling delicate snowflakes drifting down. Li Chuyi closed his eyes and touched the area where his heart lay. Thump, thump, thump. It was not just one heart that was beating, but two. There was an invisible heart in his chest. Brother Zishan, is this your mortal heart? Li Chuyi murmured. He took out paper and a pen, spread them on the table, and began to write energetically. Immortals disregard the mortal realm lofty and high, why then are they cast down? Amidst the celestial beings and demons with melodies floating in the air, why seek the immortal? He paused, chuckling softly to himself before engaging in self-mockery. Sigh, I've become ungrounded, my mindset has indeed become a bit lofty. He recalled that ever since he acknowledged a heavenly path as his father, despite his efforts to restrain himself, his state of mind had inevitably changed. If this continued for too long, it would surely lead to disaster. Brother Zishan, I accept this kindness along with your mortal heart. Li Chuyi carefully tucked away the two pieces of writing, his expression serious, as he began to summarize his experiences and gains from joining the Xingdao sect. Firstly, Xingdao Mountain is quite small. In other sects, it might merely be a cave residence for core disciples. Yet he liked it here, especially the seniors who made him feel as if he had returned to his village, warm and welcoming. Secondly, the Xingdao sect is not weak. It could even be considered strong, yet those elders seem to find it difficult to return due to the very notion of Xingdao. This has also led to the sect's increasing decline, making it incredibly difficult to recruit disciples. Lastly, the true inheritance of the Xingdao sect lies within the great universal illustration. He captured two beams of spiritual light within the illustrated space, One was the metallic technique, white bone gold technique, and the other was Cui Zishan's mortal heart. However, the two places he had seen were definitely not part of the Eastern cultivation realm. Not to mention the peculiar metallic beings, just the fact that Xinjiang Mountain treats mortals as mere weeds makes it impossible here. Mortals have their own laws, whereas in the Eastern cultivation realm, there are strict immortal gate laws. Openly causing trouble in the mortal realm is something no cultivator would dare to do. Just how vast is this world? A look of longing appeared in Li Chuyi's eyes. Junior brother Chuyi, we have brought... At that moment, a soft voice from the blind girl sounded from downstairs. "O coming senior sister," Li Chuyi responded, and quickly made his way downstairs. On the long table lay a large pot of spiritual rice porridge and several small dishes of vibrant greens looking incredibly tempting. This made his appetite surge, and his eyes sparkled. Hee, thank you, senior sisters. Chuyi is in for a treat again. As was customary, he first prepared a portion for his heavenly father, but there was only one set of chopsticks on the table, so he scooped rice into the bowl and added a bit of the small dishes. Then he directly picked up the pot and began to gulp it down. Beside him, the mute girl watched this scene and quickly grabbed the blind girl's hand to scribble, eliciting a fit of light laughter from both girls. Comforting. Li Chuyi squinted his eyes, not forgetting to lick his lips. By the way, senior sisters, where did the three-handed senior brothers go? These senior brothers had given up their spot at the mountain peak for him the previous day, then happily moved to the mountainside. Perhaps for them a handcrafted wooden building in a prime scenic location was the best gift they could offer their junior. They are packing their things, and we will. The blind girl had not finished her sentence when the mute girl nudged her arm, interrupting her, and both lowered their heads simultaneously. This scene left Li Chuyi utterly perplexed. At that moment, the old Iron Master transformed into a rainbow and landed before the group. Kid Chuyi, you have the inheritance now, so let's go. It's time to follow the old man to forge some iron. The old Iron Master shook his empty sleeves, his eyes wide like copper bells, urging Li Chuyi to leave with him. Ahem, old Iron, there's no rush for forging. Do you know where the three-handed senior brothers are? Three-handed? Aren't they preparing to descend the mountain to earn spirit stones for your cultivation? Don't you know? What? Earning spirit stones for me? Li Chuyi's face was filled with disbelief, his voice lingering long. At the peak of the western side, the two mountain-guarding elders of the Qingdao sect and the gathered disciples were in attendance, and the atmosphere was somewhat somber. Sigh, the old swordmaster sighed. Chuyi, it's like this, the Qingdao sect is currently quite destitute, lacking in spirit stones and elixirs, but with the two of us old fellows here, there's no way for disciples to run around for resources. At this moment, the three-handed one chimed in, making an effort to retract the extra hand hidden within his robe. Junior brother Chuyi, this is our own choice. When we first joined, it was those Foundation Establishment senior brothers who went down the mountain to help us find resources. Right now, you are still at the chi refining stage. As your seniors, it's only natural for us to take care of you. The three-handed one looked at Li Chuyi with a somewhat unfocused gaze, but his tone was very firm. After he spoke, the ugly guy, the foolish one, as well as the mute and blind girls, all nodded quickly. However, this scene inexplicably made Li Chuyi feel a pang of sadness. These senior brothers and sisters had been so reserved when they first met him. How could they deal with the deceit and treachery down the mountain? Chuyi, neither the old Iron Master nor I wish to see our disciples like this, but they have chosen this path themselves. Moreover, we considered that in case the old Iron and I are no longer around in the future, the disciples could support one another, allowing the Qingdao sect to continue as much as possible. The old sword master explained from the side, his tone carrying a sense of loneliness, his single eye appearing quite murky. Li Chuyi took note of this kindness. Yet, spirit stones. As the son of the Heavenly Dao, was he truly so inconsequential? Li Chuyi smiled wryly and shook his head. Senior brothers and sisters, I am deeply grateful for your kindness, but I really don't need these resources. With a light flip of his palm, various spiritual herbs, materials, and magical artifacts along with an array of bizarre items tumbled to the ground. For a moment, silence reigned on the western peak. Meanwhile, Li Chuyi continued his actions, retrieving a storage ring from his other hand, starting to work double time. As for these objects, they were the fruits of his labor during the first 3 months after arriving in this eastern cultivation world. He had already processed those of average quality in Tianjin City in batches, exchanging them for spirit stones. While these items couldn't be considered extremely precious, they were certainly not something a mere qi refining cultivator could casually possess. Therefore, he dared not take them out in Tianjin City. Who knows how helpless and conflicted he felt back then, repeatedly shouting in those desolate mountains, Father, there are too many spiritual herbs, I can't finish collecting them, it's impossible to gather them all. Father, there are too many graves of seniors, I can't open them all, it's simply impossible. This made him think of those people whose strength and hidden cards you could never decipher. And then there are those whose number of storage rings you could never fathom, nor could you guess how many spiritual herbs and spirit stones they had hidden inside. This indeed is the demeanor of the Son of Heaven. Chi, have you found some immortal sex ruins? Tell me, old man Jian, there must be some formations and restrictions inside that you can't unlock. Take me there, and he'll slash it with one sword. We can split the treasures inside. No, you take 6, and I take 4 or 7 to 3. That works too. At this moment, old man Jian's one eye was no longer cloudy. Oh, instead it sparkled with a ghostly light fixed intently on Li Chuyi. Still the same saying applied. These items may not be individually precious, but the key was in their abundance quantity, leading to qualitative change. All right, that's it, Li Chuyi said with an unchanging expression. And as for you, old man Jian, there are no immortal sect ruins. It's just good luck, nothing more. Seeing the old man's gaze fixated, he was now utterly convinced that on the way back to the mountain the old man must be envious of his good fortune and was deliberately trying to make things difficult for him. Cough, cough, old Jian, could you do me a favor and exchange these for spirit stones, preferably medium quality, and also get some materials for body tempering? Any kind of spirit beast or monster blood would do as well. And for you senior brothers and sisters, if you see any spiritual herbs in there that can be transplanted, please plant them on our Xingdao mountain. And if you find anything you like, feel free to take it. Not taking it would mean you're disregarding me as your junior brother. Li Chuyi quickly finished speaking, not waiting for the others to react, and hurriedly pulled the old man Tai away. Old Tai, aren't you supposed to teach me blacksmithing? Let's go, let's go. Watching the two depart, old man Jian pondered thoughtfully. Meanwhile, the 3 mute girls lowered their heads, their eyes reflecting both emotion and a hint of melancholy. On the eastern peak of Xingdao Mountain, at the peak, there was a fire vein here, and in the watery kingdom of Linjiang, water gives birth to fire, reversing the 5 elements. Thus, this fire vein was of extraordinary quality. Before Li Chuyi even got close, waves of heat hit him directly. There was originally a crack at the peak from which the underground fire erupted. Later, old man Tai directly set up an open-air blacksmith stall over that crack using formations. At this moment, the two landed beside the blacksmith stall. Nearby, the ground was piled high with numerous iron ingots, and various sized mysterious iron hammers were laid out. The power of that fire vein actually made Li Chuyi's mana begin to stir restlessly. Chuyi, take off your clothes, old man Tai said mysteriously. Huh, old Tai, is that really appropriate? Don't talk nonsense. With a roar, old man Tai used his mana to shred Li Chuyi's upper garment into pieces before he could even respond. Not bad, you're well built, and clearly a good candidate for blacksmithing. Old man Tai nodded and continued, but you're still a bit too delicate, not like a true blacksmith. Chuyi, use your least amount of mana to lift the iron hammer under your feet. Oh, this old man Tai clearly had a short temper, and Li Chuyi hurriedly complied. Looking at the iron hammer beneath him, he estimated it weighed around 100 pounds and lifted it with his mana, which was actually the simplest technique of object manipulation. He stirred his mana, lifting the iron hammer into the air. To specify how much mana he used, it could be described as the thickness of an ordinary person's arm. Old man Tai glanced at it and snorted coldly, rough. With all that mana, it's simply a waste. Watch closely. After a barely perceptible fluctuation of mana, a larger iron hammer flew directly into the air. Then it began to hammer down on the iron ingots on the blacksmith stall with a rhythmic clang-clang. Li Chuyi's eyes widened, staring dumbfounded at everything before him, as if he had become foolish. Because that iron hammer was astonishingly wrapped in a thread-like mana, and that mana fluctuation would definitely not exceed the chi refining stage. He swallowed hard and asked, Old Tai, can mana at the chi refining stage achieve such a level? Naturally. However, nowadays cultivators mostly use mana to cast spells or directly manipulate magical artifacts in combat, and few pay attention to such fine work. Old man Tai's voice was like a thunderous bell as he continued. Kid, from now on you will continuously use mana to blacksmith until your mana is exhausted, then repeat this process. Once you reach my level, you will have passed the test. I'm going to sleep now. The sound of blacksmithing helps me sleep. If you dare to slack off, ha. With that, old man Tai walked over to a nearby chair and lay down. Looking at the massive and battered blacksmith's table, Li Chuyi took a deep breath, said nothing more, and got to work. From that moment on, the sound of blacksmithing echoed on the western peak. One sound was him controlling the iron hammer with mana, while the other was him directly lifting the heavy hammer with both arms, hammering away at the iron ingot. The method in the white bone forging method involved tempering the body gradually through blacksmithing, which was just right. During this time, old man Tai did not teach him any techniques. Blacksmithing is a skill learned through practice, gradually understanding how to apply force and control the rhythm. Days passed like this, with Li Chuyi tirelessly forging during the day regardless of whether it was sunny or raining without interruption. At night, he began to cultivate, discarding the previous metal techniques and starting to restudy the white bone forging method. He also discovered that cultivating profound yuan heavy water technique near this fire vein yielded much better results. This fire vein was born from the water's influence, and his water-based techniques benefited from the fire's energy, which made him ponder deeply. Every day, the mute and blind girls brought him meals on schedule, and several senior brothers often came to check on him. This brought them closer together, at least making it so that they wouldn't feel awkward in front of Li Chuyi due to their peculiar. Some of the spiritual herbs he had brought were transplanted by the mute girls to various places on Xingdao Mountain, and the spiritual energy in the mountain visibly flourished. Other items were exchanged by Old Man Jian for medium-quality spirit stones totaling exactly 2,000 along with some body-tempering treasures. Such an even number made Li Chuyi suspect that the old man had pocketed some. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. On this day, a torrential downpour began at the foot of Xingdao Mountain. At that moment, the entire Xingdao Mountain was shrouded in a downpour of blinding white light. Suddenly, a triumphant laugh erupted from the eastern peak. "It's done. I've done it." Li Chuyi stood aloft in midair, his black hair flowing freely, his musculature taut and refined, his expression radiating arrogant, unbridled charisma. Within a 100-meter radius centered on his feet, wind and rain dared not intrude. "I shall name this technique. Cultivation begins with chi threads." Haha. Were one to probe with divine sense, one would discern that within Li Chuyi's 100-meter sphere countless chi threads, fine as women's hair, wove a dense, intricate web. The torrential raindrops upon encountering these filaments were sliced repeatedly into misty veils, only to vanish instantly beneath the upward surging heat of fiery vein currents. Over the past year, his cultivation of the mystic Yuan heavy water art had broken through to the 10th layer of chi refinement, while the white-bone beryl gold art had advanced to the 8th layer. Thus, his chi embodied both the weight and density of heavy water and the razor-sharp resilience of beryl gold. So formidable that were he cast into a throng of peers at the same realm, he might well become a human-shaped meat grinder. Inside a small wooden hut halfway up the eastern peak, old Tai reclined in a creaking rocking chair, eyes half closed. He had witnessed the summit's spectacle with his divine sense. Ah, the sound of this boy's hammering is strangely soothing. When he stops forging here, this old man may well grow restless. At the summit, Li Chuyi descended gently after his exhilaration subsided. The anvil bore the marks of countless strikes, a sight that stirred deep reflection within him. Beside it stood a miniature anvil forged from dark iron. Oh, why he'd crafted such a thing. Well, perhaps a peculiar habit had taken root. With a mere thought, he retracted the anvil into his spatial ring, then selected 2 perfectly balanced hammers. Sealing his hands in arcane gestures, he rode the wind cleaving through the rain-laden sky. At the western peak, beside the 3rd-floor window of a modest pavilion, Li Chuyi lounged in a rocking chair, the very one senior brother Sanzishu had fashioned for him. Outside, he wielded 2 hammers with kithan filaments striking the anvil in rhythmic alternation, ding-dong, ding-dong, a melody harmonizing seamlessly with the pattering rain, a sound he found utterly enchanting. He closed his eyes, savoring this rare moment of ease after a year of unceasing forging. Gradually, memories surfaced, villagers from his childhood, the ugly donkey, and whether Hu Niu and the others had begun cultivation, using the martial manuals he'd whimsically revised. He thought of Miss Zhang Yuga. Had she begun practicing the manual 50-50 match against the Celestial Emperor? And of the Tang clan children nestled deep within the mountains of Taoyao Kingdom, surely they could care for themselves. Then came Feng Yuan, the round-faced, plump little fellow. Li Chuyi wondered whether his childhood betrothed had remained faithful since his entry into the immortal path, and whether he might need to step in and lend moral support. He also recalled Miss Huang Ying'er of Tianjin City, her chattering voice ever bright. Had she successfully sold her cave residence? After all, he, the son of Heaven's Dao, had blessed her, her business must now be flourishing. Lastly, there was Cui Shishan, fortune arriving upon ascension, who as a mortal had blazed an unprecedented path, slaughtering an entire immortal sect in a single day. Truly, Brother Shishan's bearing was extraordinary. Slowly, Li Chuyi drifted into slumber. After a year of relentless forging, exhaustion had finally claimed him. He slept straight through until nightfall. A gentle evening breeze stirred the air as Li Chuyi slowly opened his eyes. Washed clean by the day's downpour, the night sky glittered with radiant stars, brilliant beyond measure, and the air itself carried the rich, earthy fragrance of damp soil. Li Chuyi glanced downward. The wooden table outside held a flickering candle, its flame casting dancing silhouettes. To his surprise, everyone was gathered there. The 2 elders were engaged in a silent game of spirit energy chess. Several senior brothers worked quietly on woodcraft. 2 senior sisters sat cross-legged in serene meditation. Li Chuyi leapt lightly from the balcony down to the courtyard. "Senior brother Chuyi, you're awake." The mute and blind senior sisters paused their cultivation and promptly produced a lacquered food box, arranging its contents with practiced grace. Inside lay a steaming bowl of spiritrice porridge, 2 delicate side dishes, and astonishingly 2 pan-fried river fish. 2 sets of bowls and chopsticks rested beside them. They already knew his habits. "Delicious, thank you, senior sisters." Li Chuyi beamed. By long-standing custom, he first offered reverence to the Heavenly Dao Father before picking up his chopsticks and placing a tender morsel of fish upon his tongue. "Elders Jian and Tai, what brings you all together tonight?" Curiosity tinged his voice, sensing something unusual. Across the courtyard, the two elders exchanged a glance, then quietly withdrew their chessboard. Chuyi, have you never heard of the demon sealing ruins? Elder Jian spoke gravely. Li Chuyi nodded. Of the 4 forbidden realms of the Eastern cultivation world, this one was no stranger to him. They were the divine demon well, the ancient sword tomb, the thunder pool, and the demon sealing ruins. The last feared above all its very name, sending shivers through cultivators' spines. Chuyi, do you know of a creature dwelling within, called the Ji Wei, a being of profound malevolence delighting in deception and psychological torment, driving mortals and cultivators alike to slaughter one another? Its individual strength is modest, but its proliferation is terrifyingly swift. Once it escaped the ruins entirely, unleashing cataclysmic bloodshed across both the mundane world and the cultivation realms. Once a single Ji Wei spent a millennium transforming an entire immortal sect into a living hell. Thus, every 20 years, all major sects organize expeditions, dispatching disciples under 25 years of bonage to conduct exterminations in the outer zones. First, to prevent further breaches, second, to temper the disciples' strength, third, and most tellingly, to allow the rising generation of each sect to gauge one another's power in quiet strategic rivalry. Li Chuyi grasped the truth at once. Demon slaying was secondary. The real purpose was intersect posturing. An old familiar game. Don't take this lightly, Chuyi. Elder Jian shook his head, his tone heavy with solemn counsel. This matter runs deeper than it seems. The demon sealing ruins are unspeakably perilous. Ancient records speak of beings not of our world, alien abominations, sealed there after being struck down by heaven's own lethal decree. Only afterward did the ruins coalesce, and only then did the Ji Wei arise. Later generations discovered that any disciple under 25 who slays a Ji Wei gains auspicious fortune, smoothing their path toward immortality. The more Ji Wei slain, the greater the fortune bestowed. In today's cultivation world, many high-rank cultivators own not only their innate talent, but also their celestial fortune, to this very principle. Yet slaying Ji Wei is no easy feat. It is a crimson road paved with blood. At that moment, Elder Jian's solitary eye shimmered with ancient sorrow, unresolved, ineffable. Chuyi, this quinquennial extermination is mandatory for every sect, just as the 12 great sects' recruitment rights are inviolable. Even knowing none wish to join our Xingdao sect, I must still send a representative. Such is the immutable law, unbreakable by will or whim. And among us, only you meet the criteria. Li Chuyi fell silent, contemplating deeply. Ji Wei. Slaying them conferred fortune. Did that imply heaven's own Dao abhorred them, rewarding their slayers with celestial favor? His eyes suddenly gleamed, a subtle knowing smile curved his lips. Abhorred by the Heavenly Dao, TSK. He'd assumed mere demon slaying. How intriguing. This was family business after all.